Hello there, and welcome back to the Lamppost Listener. Now, our hiatus is finally wrapping up, and we're excited to return with The Magician's Nephew in June, but before we begin our journey with Diggory and Polly, we have a fun episode today to celebrate May the 4th. So, if you've listened to the show for a while, you know that over the last 5 seasons, Phil and I have regularly veered off topic to talk about our love for Star Wars. And it just so happens that this year, we release episodes on Wednesdays, that this year, May the 4th, falls on a Wednesday, so we thought it'd be really fun to record a special Star Wars-themed episode for the feed. So here's the deal. We've brought along our good friend Andrew Geha, who's the host of Outer Rim Reads, which is a podcast about Star Wars books, and we're going to have 6 different little discussions about various Star Wars topics. We are going to start with a little bit of Narnia, but then we're going to dive deep into the Star Wars mythos. So here's the order of business for this episode. In part 1, we're going to cast the Star Wars movies with different Narnia characters, and Phil and I have kind of done that already. In part 2, the 3 of us are going to debate the best Star Wars movie, but there's a couple of rules that we have to follow. In part 3, I am going to lead us on a discussion of John Williams and our favorite musical moments from the Skywalker saga. In part 4, Andrew is going to introduce us to the world of Star Wars literature and tell us a couple of books that he thinks that we should check out. In part 5, Phil is going to put Andrew and I to the test with Star Wars trivia. And in part 6, the 3 of us will conclude by looking at what the future holds for this franchise, which has had a turbulent few years recently. Now, I recognize that all of this is wildly unrelated to Narnia, but we just couldn't pass up the opportunity to really geek out about our favorite movies together. And so even if you're not a huge fan of this galactic space opera, you're still welcome to join us, but I am warning you that we're not going to hold back today. You might be thinking to yourself, well, don't they, they don't really hold back on any given episode. No, here's where you're wrong. We actually are holding back there. When we stop talking about Star Wars after just a few minutes, that is us holding back, and none of that's going to happen today. So if that's not really your cup of tea, that's totally fine. You're welcome to rejoin us for Chapter 1 of The Magician's Nephew in June. And so we'll see you there if that's your choice. If you are going to journey along with us for the next 2.5 hours or so, we are excited to welcome you into this discussion of Star Wars. Well, hello, and welcome back to the Lamppost Listener, a show where we usually talk about C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia series, but today we are celebrating May the 4th. It lines up, this episode's releasing on May the 4th, and we have a special hiatus Star Wars-themed episode.
This only happens once every 2,000 years, and we are commemorating it.
Have you checked the calendar to see if that's true?
No, but
we'll take
it's
your
the
word
first
for it.
time in 2,000 years that we know that it's happened.
That you and I have had a podcast that happened to have a Wednesday be May the 4th. So, Andrew, welcome back to the show.
Daniel, Phil, thanks for having me back. It's been a while, but I'm always honored to get the call to come back and chat some Star Wars.
So to chat Star Wars together.
Andrew, is this the most ambitious crossover
of all time? Definitely.
Yes. So if listeners don't remember, Andrew Geha is the host of Outer Rim Reads. And before we jump into today's fun episode, Andrew, can you just tell us a little bit about your show? Remind us of any of us who might have forgotten.
For sure. If any of you are fans of kind of chapter by chapter walks through of books, I do a show that does a chapter by chapter walkthrough of Star Wars novels, canonical Star Wars novels, covering 2 to 3 chapters per episode, an entire book each season. And I'm also joined by guests along the way to chat about the material with and to dive deep and have a lot of laughs along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great.
It's been really fun to see Andrew's network expand as he's done this show.
Yeah.
Just you've met people from several different kind of groups and brought them in. It's been really neat.
Yeah, it's a great show too. I was telling you before the show, I've not listened to the current season that you were on, but I have actually read the book, and so I'm really excited to dive into that when the semester is over and I have a little bit more free time. But before we actually get into, we've got 6 fun things planned for today, 6 episodes,
If you will.
Within
one saga.
Within a saga, but 15 years later, we'll actually add 3 more episodes to that saga.
Okay.
And they're going to be before this saga.
Yeah. So,
but all 6 episodes will be under this one episode of Lamppost Listener.
Okay,
so
we're now getting into Christopher Nolan
Episode-ception.
territory. So, but if for some listeners, they might see this episode pop up in their feed and say, you know what, I really love what Daniel and Phil do, but mostly just for the Narnia thing, and not super excited about their tangents into Star Wars. We thought just because of the way that this coincided, it would be a fun time to actually really lean into that for once. But if Star Wars is not your cup of tea, then maybe just listen to this first episode here. We're gonna, again, I shouldn't call it an episode because it's not really an episode. This first part we're gonna do here, which is related to Narnia, but then the following ones are not going to even closely be related to Narnia, just fully focused on Star Wars. So, you know, if that's not your cup of tea, that's totally fine. We are going to be back with The Magician's Nephew in just about a month or so. We should be back at this point in June, and we are excited to be back. But if you do want to stick around for this episode, I don't have a cool Star Wars phrase to say, so maybe Phil does.
Oh, come on.
That's why I'm here. So
There you go. So
You don't want to listen to this episode. You want to listen to the one after this. This one is a decoy. How's that?
So this first part, as we get into this epic journey we're going on, you might even call it a hero's journey that we're going on together, we're going to cast different characters from the Chronicles of Narnia in the 3 Star Wars trilogies, part of the Skywalker saga. So Phil and I have taken a few of the main characters from the first movie in each trilogy. So Phantom Menace, A New Hope, and The Force Awakens. And we've decided that in some weird kind of alternate universe, the characters from the Chronicles of Narnia have been cast as to play the roles of these Star Wars characters. So Phil and I have chosen characters but not talk to each other, so we might disagree. But the first one we have up, we're going to start with the Phantom Menace here. Phil, we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi. Which character from the Chronicles of Narnia do you have?
I have Edmund.
You have Edmund playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, here's the thing. You actually had a different list than I anticipated, but I was trying to cast Anakin and Padme, and I thought it's going to be weird if they're related. We'll save that for episode 4. And so it had to be, that kind of indicated to me which things we need to change later on. So Obi-Wan needs to be Edmund in this case. It doesn't fully match up. This exercise is
you
really...
just were worried about the relationship between the
relationship.
Okay. All right. Okay. I chose for the part of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I actually am having Peter Pevensey play that role. I think Peter kind of brings some of that wisdom, but also a little bit of recklessness, but not the kind of recklessness that's dangerous, more that's kind of just a little bit of like, ooh, it gives him a little bit of an edge. And I thought that could be good for an Obi-Wan Kenobi type.
I think that makes a lot more sense than Edmund does.
That's okay. That's all right. All right, so before we move on to the next one, just so listeners know as well, too, we did not require Andrew to cast these himself, but he is going to jump in at any moment with his thoughts. You've not read all of the Narnia books, correct?
I have not. No,
You've not. That's okay.
but I do like.
Phil hasn't either. He's
I
like
haven't
the
read all
host
the
of
Star Wars
show, so
books.
it's fine.
Oh, same.
How
All
many?
hundreds of them.
Again, because this is going to be a
Thousands of
This is a
books.
very loose podcast. How many? Let's get off topic for 7. How many Star Wars books are there?
Oh.
If you had to estimate.
I mean, the expanded universe is absolutely massive.
There's over 1,000, right?
I would have to think so. Like every time I go to a secondhand shop, I see 10 20 new Star Wars books that I didn't know existed from the EU, from Legends. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna go with 200,000 and probably millions more on the way.
Oh, I love it. All right.
Magnificent.
Do we have the rights, or are we gonna get sued if I like put every time you guys quote from Star Wars, if I like put it in the background? Will Disney Disney will definitely come after us. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So moving on now, though, the second character we have here is Padme. Who have you decided to cast as Padme as a Narnia character?
Did you say yours yet?
No, I did not. You want me to say mine?
Yeah, you're going first this time.
Oh, okay. I put Aravis from The Horse and His Boy.
Ooh,
I thought
interesting. Yeah.
this kind of wanting to leave royalty to kind of fight for what's right, I thought really lined up between these two characters of Aravis and Padme Amidala.
Yep. I picked Susan based on hair color and height. So.
Has brown hair
and relative age.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell us who you picked for Anakin then.
For Anakin, I picked Caspian.
Caspian.
Yeah. I feel like he's someone that we meet as a child who assumes a role later on. He loses a parent. That was enough for me to go ahead and cast him.
I like that. That's actually...
It also helped that he's not related to Susan.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a love interest, but only in the movies. And Eustace was a close second, but I still think he's related.
It doesn't matter because I did pick Eustace, but my Padme is Aravis, so it's totally fine.
Yeah.
I thought Eustace, unlike Peter, has that edge, is a little, but not like, but it actually makes him untrustworthy sometimes. His recklessness makes him dangerous. I think some of those things work well for prequel Anakin.
Yeah.
Having heard those, Andrew, and having read, I think you've said you read the first chapter of Wardrobe, and you read the one chapter for Don Treader that we did, right? No. Do you have any thoughts or any just kind of rebuttals here?
I did want to say that I liked your casting of Peter as Obi-Wan. I liked what you mentioned about kind of the wisdom with some like a mild recklessness there. I usually think of Obi-Wan as kind of being the level head with some flair every now and then, with some wit and that kind of
Nothing too fancy.
Nothing too fancy. But I definitely like what you were saying about Anakin with that the dangerous kind of recklessness there. I think that's really what sets him apart from Obi-Wan. Yeah. And from what I think I remember about Eustace, I think that matches pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that. Yeah, I think that the reckless pretty much describes Anakin a lot of the times, more often than not.
Well, great, good. I'm glad that you agree with me and not Phil.
Phil wasn't wrong about Susan having the same.
They do look similar. Okay, that is true.
Physical characteristics as Padme.
Well, moving on to the next trilogy, we'll go to the OG Star Wars, A New Hope here.
What about Yoda?
We've got the trilogy of Luke, Leia, and Han.
He brings up an excellent
What
point.
about Yoda?
Oh, I forgot.
Yoda.
I didn't put Yoda in mine because I couldn't figure it out.
Oh.
So you and I have different notes, but who did you put for
I was
Yoda?
going to have us both go at the same time because I thought it was so obvious. I thought Aslan.
See,
what's your reason for not Aslan?
Yeah, I deleted it because I felt uncomfortable because we never see Aslan fail at anything. And we regularly do see Yoda fail. In fact, you could argue that the entire prequels is watching Yoda as the main leader of the Jedi Council slowly fail on not just a personal level, but on a huge systemic level that causes the entire downfall of the civilization. And I know it's not just Yoda, and we're going to talk about the prequels in a minute. One of the reasons that I have warmed up to them in more recent memory is because I think viewing them as this tragedy on a a universal level throughout the entire galaxy, I think actually really works. And I do think that Yoda's now he is this character of wisdom in Empire and Jedi, and then again in Last Jedi when he appears. And he has wisdom in the prequels, but it's all kind of overshadowed by the fact that that trilogy ends with him going into hiding saying, I have failed.
Or failed I have.
Failed I have. That's true. And I felt uncomfortable having the Great Lion take on that role.
Okay, so let's reverse it. If you had to put Aslan into Star Wars, he would have to be a character that never fails, right? What's one character that always does something helpful in the right way?
I already have
and
another character who's R2-D2.
I'm just saying it's R2-D2.
I was thinking Jar Jar, but
Jar Jar or R2-D2.
This is going to be a Jar Jar hate-free podcast. We're not going to hate on Jar Jar here. But I could argue that. I did throw in C-3PO and R2 since they appear in all of them. I felt like C-3PO obviously is Puddle Glum. Obviously, just sitting there complaining.
Yep.
You don't know who this character is, Andrew. That's okay.
it sounds accurate from
But
what you're
just
saying.
complaining, saying everything awful is going to happen. And then with Reba Cheap, I thought that he would be best for R2-D2 because...
Now that's something we can agree on. We're reaching across the aisle.
I thought that would be a great kind of this character that's charismatic, that's excited, and that always is willing to help others. I thought
And
that
just armed to the teeth.
Exactly. Very,
Yes,
very true.
Always.
But before we go, now that we've moved past Yoda, let's actually now go back to A New Hope. Luke, Leia, and Han. Just give me all three of them. Who have you cast?
Luke, Peter,
Okay.
Leia, Susan, easy. The relation part kicks in.
I didn't. Do you use same characters from?
Yeah,
From previous
here's the thing, Daniel. I don't have a secret list on my phone where I plan this out every day. And I did run out of characters.
That's fine. That's fine.
I really ran out for episode 7.
Okay.
But I'm really excited about trivia.
Yeah.
We are going to do trivia later.
My brain doesn't work like this as well as yours does.
That's fine.
And then you said the last one was Han?
Yeah. Who'd you?
I put Shasta.
Okay.
Shasta.
I
Gosh,
could see
I'm
that
gonna
working.
get that right one day.
It doesn't matter.
the
The
first
season's
try.
over.
But Shasta, purely because of the origin story, I felt like it kind of lined up with the Han Solo movie by Ron Howard.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. For Luke, I had Edmund because I thought just some great redemption there. For Leia, I thought Lucy because she has that spunk, she has that curiosity, she's a fighter. Lucy, not really a physical fighter as much, but very much as a personality, where Leia physically does actually fight. And then for Han Solo, I put Prince Rillian. When we come across him in the Silver Chair, he is like really the one character in Narnia who is a little full of himself, but kind of has earned it.
That matches up.
So I thought that he would be a good person to play Han Solo.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that I think you both have kind of traded when one picks Edmund, the other picks Percy and
Peter.
Peter, sorry,
Okay,
Percy.
yeah.
I thought that's interesting to maybe reflect some of your takes on those two characters and seeing them maybe in different lights.
Well, and
but I've noticed that.
Like a light side and a dark side.
Well, I do think that Edmund, after his redemption in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, actually does take on a lot of the similarities of Peter. They're still two distinct characters, but they do start to blend together a little bit more, which makes sense. They're brothers. They have similar upbringing. They do have a lot more similarities. So I think it depends on which Edmund are you thinking of. Are you thinking of pre-White Witch Edmund, or are you thinking of post-White Witch Edmund? So, but fine.
BWW versus AWW.
That is for anyone who's not nerdy enough at Star Wars. For the longest time, although not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
For the longest time, dates in Star Wars were kept using BBY and ABY. So before the Battle of Yavin and after the Battle of Yavin. Kind of like a before Christ and an Anno Domini kind of thing. Which is weird that they use like the same years like the destruction of an entire planet being Alderaan is like, oh, that's when human civilization, like that's when we changed calendars.
Yeah, it's
it was weird.
A little bit. I don't think that I don't think I agree with their decision there. I think they should have kept it with the Yavin. It never sat well with me.
It's a little odd.
Yeah,
but, so that was Phil's joke, which I will no longer explain. The story.
No, I actually appreciate that you're explaining it because I think that some of these are going to be deep cuts,
and that's okay, because we have other, we have more Narnia content obviously coming back soon. But to wrap up our Narnia content here, we've got a couple more characters that we want to get to, Phil. So take it away.
So Vader.
Oh yes, Darth Vader. Who did
I
you
put
use?
White Witch.
The White Witch.
It's not perfect. Really, the White Witch I think would be the Emperor. Just because the kind of recurring, like always kind of in the background, like very, very just unquestionably evil, manipulating people, always trying to get new
Yeah.
recruits. That makes more sense. But in terms of you need a bad guy and we're going to pick one, there aren't a ton. The White Witch made sense to me.
Yeah, I thought that the White Witch, obviously, I put the same thing, different motivation as a character, but kind of that brooding sense of, like, from the other characters' perspectives, I think a lot of the protagonists in Star Wars look at Vader the same way our Narnia protagonists look at the White Witch, like with that level of fear and intimidation. So I thought it was a good pick.
Yeah.
All right, The Force Awakens, wrapping up with the sequel trilogy here. We've got Rey, Finn, Poe, and Kylo Ren.
For Rey, I put Polly.
Okay.
For Poe, I put Diggory. Kylo was Uncle Andrew. And Finn, I put Truffle Hunter.
So you really getting into The Magician's Nephew. You've been excited. We've been reading that. Our listeners have not heard us talk about it yet.
They haven't. And to be clear, I'm only a couple chapters in because of where we are recording that, and then we're recording this ahead of time.
Do you want to talk any way about why you made some of those choices?
Uncle Andrew seems pretty evil, but also like there's a shot at redemption. I feel like that matched up with Kylo Ren. Polly, just kind of like a younger character later on in a series that matched up with Rey.
Okay.
Finn is Truffle Hunter, just kind of a character that could be a main character, but tends to be on the side storylines a little bit more than you would expect.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I went with Rey. I went with Jill. I think that in particular, Jill, of so many of the female characters we come across in Narnia, Jill has that chip on her shoulder that I think Rey has as well. And that kind of it bleeds into my choice for Finn, which was Shasta. This kind of wanting to be bigger than the role I've been given, wanting to do something greater than myself. I think both Finn and Shasta really are like that.
That makes a lot of sense.
For Poe, I put Caspian, a little bit of a hothead, but very much does have the talent to back it up. Yep. And then for Kylo Ren, I put Rabidash, this complete, like someone who is so insecure about especially about their masculinity, that they kind of go to all these lengths to prove how tough they are. And I think that works really well for Kylo Ren and for Rabidash.
I do think that what you said about Finn and this Force Awakens Finn, from what
that I'm thinking specifically Force Awakens,
and wanting to be bigger, because I thought that my understanding of him in the Force Awakens is that he was trying to, at least for half the movie, trying to shy away and kind of thinking that he didn't want to be part of this bigger.
You're right. Yeah,
fight
yeah.
that I don't know, but.
No, because that's much more of Last Jedi. That whole like, who are you? I'm a rebel, and then he hits Phasma. That's when you're exactly right, Andrew. That's really when he takes on I'm a part of something bigger than myself.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Didn't mean to poke a hole into the ballistic.
This is why you're here today, Andrew. This is what we want to do.
We need someone to balance him out.
Because
he comes across as so confident.
So any more Narnia thoughts before we just completely dive headfirst into Star Wars content?
No.
All right. So part 2 here.
Buckle up.
So part 2 here is going to be a debate. And let me give the rules here before we go. We'll start with you, Phil, then Andrew, and then we'll end with myself. This debate, each of us have been randomly assigned a movie that we have to defend as the best movie in the Star Wars series. Phil, you have gotten A New Hope from 1977. Andrew, you have 2005's Revenge of the Sith, and I have drawn the shortest straw and have 2002's Attack of the Clones. So, Phil, we're going to have 90 seconds each to explain why our movie is the best, and then we'll have a little bit of rebuttal from the other two.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Phil, we'll start with you here with A New Hope. So tell us why A New Hope is the best Star Wars movie.
Well, I'd like to start by saying that I don't need the full 90 seconds to convince everybody.
Okay.
I'd like to donate the rest of my time to charity.
And that's it.
And that's it.
Do you have anything to share?
No, I have tons to share.
Okay.
It was the first one. It revolutionized visual effects and special effects. It set the stage for one of the best universes that they've ever made in fiction. It catapulted 3 unknowns into hyper success to the point that Carrie Fisher joked every time she looked in the mirror, she had to send George Lucas a check. And it was a true underdog. Nobody thought that this movie was going to do anything. The banks were trying to pull their money back. Just no one wanted to fund it. I think that George Lucas was selling stuff off in order to finish the movie, just to have enough. And then it took off, and people were seeing it so many times. Like not just going to see it once or twice, but 3 or 4 or 5 times. And it gave us these characters that we really love that we're still talking about 40 plus years later. Is that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got nervous 45. About my math for a second.
Yeah. 45 years ago.
That's it. How am I doing on time?
You're at 1 minute, so you're good to go.
I'm
Andrew,
good.
Do you have a response to this? And I know it's hard because you have to disagree with him.
I know. I mean, it's so... If I'm being honest, it's so hard to disagree with it. I can't really poke holes in A New Hope. It's just... I've seen it so many times. But look, if you're watching a movie today, if you're just like turning on, let's say the Force Awakens or something, and you're looking at a movie that just looks good, A New Hope, the effects are so bad, like the technology, the acting, Luke's whining, is that what you really want to see? And pay $27 for a movie ticket to go watch. Exactly. Yeah.
Did you adjust for inflation?
Accounting for inflation right there.
I will say, to that point, I had a friend who said that he tried to get his kids to watch Star Wars, and they asked 40 minutes into it if they could leave. And I didn't even waste a second. I said, do your kids regularly watch YouTube? He said, well, yeah. I said, that's your mistake.
That's the mistake.
You can not let them see anything else. Star Wars needs to be the first thing that they see. Like,
really?
Sure,
That's going to be the first
PBS
thing your and
is
Sarah's
fine.
kids see is Star Wars.
Absolutely. I saw
100%.
Star Wars when I was 5,
Okay.
maybe 6.
Your kid's never going to watch a movie until they're 5.
No.
Or a show or a video. Like, just Star
nothing.
Wars is the genesis.
And we don't do a lot.
We're gonna
we
weave
barely
baskets.
do any screens for my son, but like I'm just thinking 5 years old is a very long time to, like, is he never going to go over, he or she never going to go to a friend's house? It just feels like that's going to be a hard
Not
bar.
going to have friends until they're 5,
That's true. There you go.
I'm not the one on trial here. The New Hope is.
Okay, well then let me tell you a little bit about A New Hope, and despite the fact that it is my favorite of these, I'm going to tell you why it's wrong.
I just want to point out that everybody's agreeing with me as their first line of defense.
Two reasons why you're wrong, though. The first is that despite many of the great things about it, it is arguably the weakest when it comes to acting. I know people are saying, no, the prequels. And I say, no, because there are a couple of weak links in some of the prequel movies. Hayden Christensen obviously gets brought up sometimes, and I actually think if you've ever seen Shattered Glass, he's actually a great actor. He's just not given a lot to do. Luke is not a great director of actors. And I think some of that comes through, especially with Mark Hamill's performance, which I do think is his weakest performance in all the movies, is there in A New Hope. I think he grows a lot as the movies go on, especially when you get to Last Jedi. He's very, very strong there. I do think some of that, but that's minor. I think actually the biggest problem that I would say about why it can't be the best is because if you go watch this movie pretty much anywhere, unless you come to my house where I might have a bootleg version of it, you're going to have to watch the special edition. And I think the special editions are terrible, especially A New Hope, which adds in Greedo shooting first. The new version on Disney Plus. What does he say? What does he say, Andrew?
What does he say?
He says something like McClunky.
Oh, McClunky.
Says, I'll put it in this. There's going to be so many different links in the description. Phil, why don't you take a picture of the timestamp?
They added a CGI rock in front of R2-D2.
They've CGI'd a rock in front of R2.
Added a dinosaur.
You've got the weird dinosaur. You've got the weird noise that Ben Kenobi makes when he scares away the Tusken Raiders. There's so many things that are completely unnecessary. That and even outside of how unnecessary they are, you want to talk about special effects. When you see shots that were done in the late 90s, juxtaposed with shots from the 70s, it looks terrible. And on top of that, that late 90s CGI is bad. It does not look good. Some of the color transfers were done poorly. In fact, Luke Skywalker looks like he has a green lightsaber when he's doing his training on the Millennium Falcon, depending on which version of it you're watching digitally. And what's just so... Now, I'm going to be honest, I have a version on Blu-ray that is the 1977, the exact copy that was in theaters. Doesn't even say A New Hope or anything like that. It's the way I like it.
The original.
It's the way my kids will watch it. But it's hard to find a copy that way, and I do think that movie is significantly hampered by that special edition, which is the version that 99% of people are watching.
Yeah.
True.
I like when Han steps on his tail.
Oh, we didn't even mention that. Do y'all know, I'm sure Andrew does, Phil, do you know the whole history of how they chose that scene?
What do you mean, how they chose that scene?
So that scene where Han meets with Jabba the Hutt, it was cut because they had
it was
Jabba.
a person.
It was that person. It was like
And
this
then they
guy in like
replaced
this
that
big
person
vest.
with an actual, what we now know as Jabba the Hutt.
What is Jabba the Hutt? But it was originally shot. Jabba wasn't an alien. He was just this dude wearing a big vest. And Lucas said, let's cut that scene. Well, they decided that was who Jabba was. But then when they did Return of the Jedi, they made him into a Hutt. Is that the name of the species?
Yeah.
The Hutts. Okay. And in that scene, Harrison Ford walks behind the actor playing Jabba, but Jabba the alien has a tail, and so they literally just CGI'd him moving up and down.
Yeah.
And
It was almost they cut him out. They cut him
Yes.
out and they physically moved him up on the screen.
That's rough.
It's if you watch it closely, it's so bad. In fact, the final line, which works either one of two ways, and both of them are awful. The final line is Han Solo walks away and says to Jabba, "Jabba, you're a wonderful human being," which is either one, it makes Han Solo look absolutely clueless, or two, he's being horribly racist. It's
not a
one
good
of
look
those
either way.
things.
That's the first time I thought of it, because I guess originally he was calling Jabba exactly what he.
Yeah, I mean,
Jabba
he was still
a human.
being facetious. He's saying, "Hey, you're a wonderful guy," when clearly
Yeah.
Jabba's a terrible, this gangster who's running these.
Exploitative.
Yeah, exactly. But that either comes across as Han being completely clueless or a horrible person making a very insensitive comment.
Both of those kind of fit.
Which both could be true, but it is a little bit. Yeah, it's just why I put that scene back in. You don't have to do it. All right. So, but I think we.
And Andrew, you don't have to justify it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Not
try
your call.
to.
But Andrew, what you can justify is why Revenge of the Sith, though, is better than A New Hope and Attack of the Clones and all the other movies.
For sure. I think the task that Revenge of the Sith was given, and it kind of towards the whole prequel trilogy, but especially to Revenge of the Sith, is telling a story that we already know the outcome of, but making it so exciting along the way, and also showing how tragic it was along the way. Because we know that, Anakin becomes Darth Vader, but seeing how, and every time I watch the movie again, I'm just wishing that don't make these choices. It has to end a different way, and it's always so gripping. I think the emotion of the movie, and also the risk that it takes in pretty much ending Star Wars for the time, because I think the sequel trilogy didn't come out for many more years, on generally speaking, a very dark note, is a pretty risky move. They did, end with the twin sons and Luke and all that, but it's a very dark movie. But I think it sums up the fall of the Jedi Order and the Republic extraordinarily well, showing, you'd spoken to the faults of Yoda earlier, and I think we see it come crashing down pretty cataclysmically on him, where, good doesn't win. The Grand Master of the Jedi Order loses to Palpatine. I think the opening scene of Revenge of the Sith is probably my favorite in all of Star Wars. That opening battle, the score by John Williams, he dropped absolute flame on everyone's ears. It was fantastic to listen to and watch.
You've got 10 seconds.
The effects are great. Padme deserve better.
I thought you were going to end it with
Ewan McGregor's
Padme was
acting.
incredible in that movie.
Nope, but Ewan McGregor was, and that's my time.
All right, great.
Oof.
I kind of helped you both out with saying that Padme deserved better.
Yeah, and obviously one weakness is, I think that we've talked about this before, but the prequels had really good ideas, but pretty poor execution. There are no real troopers in the prequel movies.
So bad.
It's all CGI, especially in Revenge of the Sith. It's really bad. It kind of looks like they just stopped halfway, and everything's too repetitive. Everything looks like it's and it really pulls you out of the story. And if you're pulled out of the story, it doesn't really matter what else is happening. I think that a lot of the lines were not very well written. Again, the ideas were great, but the lines weren't very well written, and that pulled me out of the story too. Just some of the things that were said out loud. Like, you can be a really, really incredible award-winning actor and still struggle with that script.
Which, I mean, many of them did. I mean, you think about how talented Natalie Portman is, and she's terrible in that movie. Like, and that's not a knock on her talent. She's a phenomenal actress.
And the writing, though.
There's that one scene where Anakin is telling Padme that she's just so beautiful and he's in love with her because she's so beautiful. It just sounds like it was written by a fifth grader who'd never talked to someone of the opposite sex. Like, they never talked to, like, had no idea, or like an AI wrote a love story. And some of that stuff it just falls flat. I actually think Revenge of the Sith is the worst script of the original 6 movies. I think Rise of Skywalker actually beats it as a worse script. But I think the script itself is weak. Although the story is strong, you're exactly right. I do think that script, there's just so many great ideas that it just seems like nobody said, "Hey, George, what about we take a second run on this line?" And Lucas is obviously very famous for saying that he views, he really would much rather make silent films. He views actors as like necessary parts to the movie, but not the heart of them. And that's his prerogative. He's a talented filmmaker. So, and I'm not. So, who am I to say that? But I do think that it comes through in Revenge of the Sith. I think with certain, there's also a couple of things where it just tries to do too much. I don't think we needed General Grievous. I think it was supposed to be this like foreshadowing of Anakin, where it's like, look, he's got this cough or this wheeze, and he's this like more machine than man kind of thing. And I was like, we don't need that. And I think some of the other things, you're exactly right. The Padme is wasted in that movie. That
explains it.
that in her entire narrative is, I'm pregnant, and that's not a bad narrative. Don't get me wrong.
Something wonderful has happened.
Something
the
wonderful.
Deleted scenes of Padme, her deleted scenes should have been kept in.
And I'm not saying that it's bad that she's pregnant or anything. That would be a fine narrative, except that the first 2 movies, her story has been dealing with her personal life and her professional life, and she has these responsibilities of a politician, and she feels compelled to do good or to do something for the common good, but she also has her personal ambitions of family and of motherhood. And there are these great deleted scenes that, if anyone's not familiar with, of her literally starting the Rebel Alliance, and they cut every single one of those scenes out of the movie. And if they had put those back in, the movie becomes so much stronger.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also, it's way more exciting too with just the stuff that happens on the ship and the stuff with Shakti. Like, they cut out 20 minutes of really cool stuff. And I don't know if anyone was sitting there saying, I want it to be shorter. If you're gonna, like, just at this point now, put it back in.
Okay, but flashback to May 19th, 2005, when the movie came out. Okay, there was not, right now, I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming you guys have seen the new Batman movie.
Yes. I have not.
You've not. So Phil has seen it. One of the reasons I haven't seen it is because it's 3 hours long.
Lord of the Rings extended edition.
But see, those are very.
Wow.
That's a very
Man,
different.
Andrew comes into here.
That's a very different thing.
Just gently
deserving
returning your fire.
I'm not trying to put. I'm sure I'll probably enjoy the Batman movie. I don't know that the I don't know what 8th Batman movie we've had in 20 years needs to be 3 hours long. I would be more than happy with a 90.
I'm just curious how he became Batman.
You see what I'm saying? But
like how
Batman
I will
began,
say, modern audiences seem to be here in 2022 seem to be much more comfortable with a longer blockbuster movie.
You know what I think it was? All that binge watching they did on Netflix.
You think that was part of it?
Yeah.
I mean, but
you watch 8 hours of a show, you can handle a 3-hour movie, no problem.
But back in 2005, there are not, outside of the Lord of the Rings, I think 2.5 hours, you felt like you're pushing it. And Revenge of the Sith does get up to that mark. I think it's about 2 hours and 20 some minutes. And I think a big fear was like, is it too long? Is it too bloated? I think you're right that modern audiences going in to see that movie now would be okay with that. But I think that was a fear from the studio. Is maybe 20th Century Fox is looking at this and George, we don't mind the terrible dialogue, but 3 hours is too long. Especially, and I will say this, like compared to even Batman or Lord of the Rings, like this now, arguably maybe not Revenge of the Sith because it ends with a guy getting his limbs chopped up and burning alive, and then a woman dying in childbirth. But the rest of the 5 other movies had been made for kids, but enjoyed by all.
Right. Yeah.
So like maybe that's hey, do we want a 3-hour movie that's made for 10-year-olds?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fair.
So that was a long.
Star Wars is for
tirade,
kids,
but
So.
But that's my biggest knock is some of the best stuff is gone. Although
Also,
I have grown much
movies
more
were
into this
still
movie.
actually coming out at midnight at that point. That
Yeah,
would have
they
been a
were.
really long time to stay up late,
True.
considering I was in 7th grade.
All right.
All right. Well, do you have any other feedback for Revenge of the Sith, or should we go on to Attack of the Clones?
Attack of the Clones.
I think I do also I know my time is up, but it is the most memeable of all of the Star Wars movies.
that is
and I
a
think
really
that
excellent
makes that rises its stock.
Okay.
I just want to clarify too. Now that I've defended the other way, I really enjoy so many moments of Revenge of the Sith. When they land the ship inside right as the blast doors are closing and they both pop out of the ship and like take out multiple droids before they land, that's so fun.
It's so cool.
I don't always cheer, but I cheer probably 90% of the time.
Yeah.
When I'm watching it by
Can't stand the
myself.
battle droid voices though. Oh man.
My mom got lost at that too. She
Did
doesn't
not.
like those, but
No. Well, speaking of battle droids, we got a whole attack of. Wait, no, those are clones.
Yikes.
So I am going to argue that Attack of the Clones, the best Star Wars movie, and let me tell you why. Count Dooku, Poggle the Lesser. Could you think of any better names for third-tier villains in a Star Wars movie? Again, and then if you're
Dax
not sure,
Shepard.
it's not Dex. It's Dexter Jester.
Jester.
There are
third.
no other Star Wars movies that have a scene that takes place in a 50s themed diner where you see an alien pull up his pants because you are seeing a part of his bottom that you did not want to see. No other Star Wars movies have these things. Now, all those things are things that I do not like about this movie, but I will say, I actually think a couple of things that are really strong about Attack of the Clones is I think there are some good casting choices. I think, obviously, this is really the movie where Ewan McGregor and Natalie Portman really pay off. I don't think they had nearly as much to do in the previous movie. They're also much younger. You have Christopher Lee coming in who owns every single scene that he is in. This was, although it maybe hasn't aged perfectly, this was the first introduction of CGI Yoda, which I think actually was good at the time.
And for anyone challenging him on that, it was a puppet in episode 1, then they went back and replaced it.
That's true. If you go watch it now, it actually is a CGI character there too, but it was a puppet back in 1999. There's some good stuff that happens there. The Obi-Wan going off on this kind of mysterious, kind of like almost like Jedi
quest, if you will.
This Jedi quest is interesting. I think there's some unique things. Obviously, the love story does not play out well. But I think the thing that really makes this, I got 10 seconds, is seeing Palpatine's plan kind of come to fruition is actually extremely interesting. But this movie's not good.
Look, Daniel, you looked me in the eye and said, for Revenge of the Sith, was there ever a moment where someone would be like, hey, George, don't we just want to rethink that line? Is that really what we want on screen? And I'm haunted by the kiss you should never have given me. The whole love between Anakin and Padme was written so bad. It's the writing is so terrible.
By the way, when they do kiss, when they're going out into the
I truly deeply love you.
the arena.
Yeah.
Do you know how they did that kissing?
No.
Like how they did the sound effect? They had Foley artists kissing their hands.
Can you explain what Foley artists are if people aren't familiar with them?
Foley artists are the people who do all the sound effects that aren't the main dialogue and aren't the kind of like the big thing.
Yeah, so if you
like,
hear
they wouldn't
someone-
do an explosion, but they would walk around with boots on and record that. for
Yeah,
all
if
the
someone's
clone
walking
troopers.
in a hallway, you're actually not hearing the real walking. You're actually hearing a Foley artist who's recorded the sound of walking. They were kissing their hands.
Yeah,
Interesting.
And they did so many takes, and they're like, "Oh, that one is a little too wet." Like, yeah. But it's just go on Disney Plus, look at the behind the scenes for
I have them on
Attack of the
Blu-ray and
Clones.
everything, so I can.
No, I don't know if it's on the
Oh,
DVDs,
it's only on Disney
'cause
Plus?
This
Okay.
one surprised me. Maybe it's on like a Blu-ray or something, but I
Okay.
was surprised by this behind the scenes because I was really into him as a kid. But
Yeah.
it's just 11 minutes of them doing different
Okay.
sound effects, and they spend a lot of time on that.
All right.
I mean, the writing.
It's
The
I'm
script is
It's not my job to defend it anymore.
leaves
So
a lot to be desired. And look, Jango Fett's cool, but really, do we want a character who's just like there in order to make Boba Fett a character from a whole different trilogy look better?
I
you
will
know?
defend. No, I will defend that Jango Fett is objectively cooler.
I think
than
he's
Boba
objectively cooler than Boba Fett. I think
Yes.
he's just better than Boba Fett. But his purpose was to make up for
Correct.
past mistakes of George. You know, he doesn't own his own character because he's there to mop up the dirt that Boba Fett from the OT left behind.
To be fair, he's just a simple man trying to
Trying
make
to
it in the universe.
Exactly. Possibly. Pack your things. I'm leaving.
Fett. Oh,
I mean, but
Oh
I
wait,
think
hold on. Tonwee's here.
I mean, I think a huge part of that movie is the love story between Anakin and Padme, and
Unfortunately,
trying
yes.
to build that up to fall in Revenge of the Sith, and the way that it was executed. You know, so many scenes relying on that chemistry, and it just was never there. And you know, two great actors, especially Natalie Portman, given terrible scripts to
Yeah.
work with, they were done a disservice. You know, we talked about Padme being done a disservice in Revenge of the Sith. That's exactly what was happening writing wise
Yeah.
in Attack of the Clones. Although she did have some objectively cool scenes, especially in the battle
Yeah.
afterwards. But
there's some cool stuff that happens, and actually I think is a great example of the problem in the movie. The very famous line of "I don't like sand; it's coarse and it gets everywhere" is one of those things where obviously that's a huge meme.
There
People
goes
make
one of
fun
my
it.
trivia questions.
People make fun of that line, but the thing about it is like that's actually
It actually makes sense for his kind of
that's
character.
actually really good for his character.
Yes.
Like the fact that he would hate that because he's haunted by the fact that he remembers life before. Like they're sitting in Padme's vacation home as the royalty of an entire planet in so much luxury, and he can't forget the fact that he left behind a life of slavery and an enslaved mother. And like that's actually a great idea, and then it's just executed so poorly. But the idea is strong,
Right.
and that's everything I think about Attack of the Clones. I actually think it has, if the execution had been just good, not even great, just good,
Just good.
I actually think this would have been the Empire Strikes Back, the one that, although I actually like A New Hope better, most people say Empire is kind of like the peak of the OT, and I think people would have said this about Attack of the Clones if some of those ideas had been more fully fleshed out, if there'd been another executive producer who wasn't Rick McCallum just saying, whatever you want to do, George, you're perfect, you can do no wrong. If someone said, hey, George, let's rethink through this, and if some of the editing had been different. Marcia Lucas, who did the editing for A New Hope, who at this point had been divorced from George because they were married, it's got some weak editing too. A lot of things just came out with a really bad final product.
I think that what we all want is the production value of the sequels on the prequels with those ideas, and then maybe get whoever made the magic of episode 5 happen script-wise.
Well, Larry Kasdan did write The Force Awakens.
Right, but I want to take his ideas, like his script, and put it on George Lucas's ideas
Okay.
for the prequels.
Okay.
combine those different elements, and there we have the best Star Wars movie of all time. So
right.
if the potential for Attack of the Clones is there to be the best movie of all time, that alone could be the argument, the only argument necessary.
Also, shout out to that title because you know exactly what it's about. I'm still not sure what a Phantom Menace is.
Have you guys seen? I'll put this into.
Who are the
Phil,
Sith
Phil,
anyway?
take a picture of this so I know where to drop it in at. Sorry, it makes me sound very bossy here, but Phil's closest to the recording device. There is a great video of Ewan McGregor learning the name of the movie Attack of the Clones. He's like at a press release for like Moulin Rouge.
That's what it is.
And they're like Attack of the Clones. He's like, no way, you can't be serious. Like, nah, that's not it. They didn't really call it that. Like he's thinks
Really?
that they're playing with them. Like, no, why would they call it Attack? Like he's so in disbelief that they would call the movie Attack of the Clones.
You say that, but it really does fit into the genre that Star Wars was originally imitating.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think to maybe the average moviegoer, people kind of laugh at that name, but it totally fits into those Saturday kind of serialized TV shows Lucas is going for.
A lot easier to say than Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, I still struggle with that.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and move into part 3 here, which I'm excited to talk about. We're going to be talking about some Star Wars music. All right, so...
We're not leaving that in. Music.
Now, the reason I'm leaving it in, and the reason is because I was doing what many of us subconsciously do, which was thinking about the music as the oxygen of the Star Wars
That's a good
movies. And
save.
so I combined purposefully
I just
the
threw
word
up a little.
music and oxygen together.
I'm very proud of
to
you right now.
make musoxygen, whatever I just said.
Music.
Musigen.
Musigen? Yeah.
And
Mutagen.
we all know
Ask your doctor about music.
John Williams, the Star Wars world owes so much to John Williams. Now, obviously, Michael Giacchino has done some work with Rogue One. You have
Kevin Kiner
for some of the TV shows. You've got who's doing The Mandalorian? I can't remember his name. He's done work with Charles Gambino.
Just because you asked me right now.
I think it's Miss O'Malley's
He's
fifth
from
grade
Sweden.
class because it's all recorded.
It's that guy from
right?
Sweden. He's done a lot of hip hop stuff too. And then also we had John Powell do Solo, Star Wars story.
Ludwig Göransson.
Yes, that's who's done Mandalorian. So a lot of
I
different.
really do like the new sound that he's come up with for Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah, and so there have been
good.
other people, but we're going to talk specifically about John Williams today. So what we've kind of done here is I was in charge of this part, and I'm going to lead us through the 9 films in the Star Wars saga, and I just want to share with you my favorite motif that we can talk about. So obviously on the show, this actually come up before that I really love musical scores. I love not just listening to them, but also like reading about some of the choices behind them. So I'm going to share at least one of my favorite motifs. And then we're going to end with each of us sharing, after we get through all the movies, we're each going to share our favorite music moment throughout the entire saga. All right?
Okay.
So you can be thinking about it while I talk about some of these motifs here. So starting off with The Phantom Menace, my favorite, and I think many people are going to feel the same way, is John Williams blew us all away with the Duel of the Fates.
So good.
So good.
So incredible. And the Lucasfilm knows this. They put it into the new Kenobi trailer. They're like, that's a way to get people on board. And there's not many other things that we can say about Duel of Fates that haven't been said. So actually, I want to talk about a lesser-known theme that deserves still a lot of credit, which is Anakin's theme from The Phantom Menace, which is this really beautiful, very calm, but has this sense of dread behind it. This is John Williams creating this score about the same time he's actually writing the first 2 Harry Potter movies. And I think some of that kind of childlike innocence that we'd seen in Hook or in E.T. and some of the scores he'd done before really comes through here. And I think it's a score. We don't hear any of this really ever again in the movies. It's only found here in The Phantom Menace. And it comes through as kind of portraying Anakin as this, like, we know from the get-go that this kid is going to grow up to become Darth Vader. So it's almost this tragic innocence that he has. And the really great thing, and I'll post links to all these in case people want to listen while we're talking or before we're talking about them, is the last 2 lines of the motif hit this like bum, 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 as the Imperial March thing, which is so great.
Just a taste.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
So that's my favorite. If anyone else wants to shout one out, feel free to.
No.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to. I just wanted to give it out there.
But I do just you said like foreshadowing and kind of like into that Vader sound. One of the posters or of
The teaser poster.
the teaser
yeah.
poster with Anakin as a kid standing with the shadow of Darth Vader on the building behind him.
And that's really
so
what this
Yeah.
theme does. It kind of is that encapsulated in musical form, which is great.
I love that tragic innocence that you said there. I think that really sums that up, and it's very sad. 'Cause
Yes.
we see just how. Yeah, I think John Williams really, really knocked it out of the park there, characterizing Anakin that way, and also like that little drop at the end, exactly like you said, to remind us of who he becomes.
What's going to happen
Yeah.
here?
And speaking of foreshadowing, the celebration song at the very end of that episode.
I want to get to
I
this.
thought you were moving to episode 2. I was
Well,
trying to fit it in there.
It's my favorite music moment ever.
Okay.
But if,
Okay.
if you want to talk
No,
about
no,
it,
no.
that's fine.
It's your favorite. I have a different favorite.
You do? Okay.
do,
So
yeah.
we're fine with that. We will bring it up because it's absolutely genius. I think you're the one who actually told me this.
No, you're the one who told me.
This
Oh, really?
fact.
Okay.
I was mind blown when I learned the truth of this song.
Well, let's just talk
yeah.
about it now because
Yeah.
we're right here. All right. So, Phil,
Sorry.
tell us a little bit about this.
So it's Augie's Great Municipal Band. Is that
Municipal March or something like that.
Municipal
Yeah.
March? So they play this song, and it's very upbeat and very happy.
It's the very end of the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, everybody's smiling at each other.
There's a child's choir singing.
There's a child's choir singing. You know there's a guarantee of peace because they hand this blue orb from one group to another.
Like
and
C.O.
then-
Bibble gives it to Boss Nass,
And
I
they
believe.
raise
and
it
he
in the
raises
air.
it above his hand, and he declares peace. Even though all the people they were fighting against are no longer there.
It's like we killed everyone else,
We just
and we
disabled
handed
their
other
shit.
people, and this is our piece.
But the song that's playing turns out to be, and Daniel pointed this out, and I actually didn't believe it at first. I was like, no, that might be something else. And then we listened to it, and I was just, it's incredible. That song that's playing, this really happy celebratory song, if you switch it to a minor key and slow it down, it's Palpatine's theme.
It is.
So
And
good.
it makes, once you know that, it makes the scenes with Palpatine looking around smiling even more sinister.
But
They were already sinister because you know what he's going to do. His name is Palpatine.
Yes, I mean it's so great because it's not just a celebration of the victory for the Battle of Naboo. It's a victory for Palpatine. It's him
Absolutely.
celebrating. This is exactly what he wanted. This was the Phantom Menace. He's gotten exactly what he wanted. Again, terrible name for a movie, but like that is what he wanted, and it's so great.
What was that?
If you take what Andrew just did and slow it down and
Was that the
switch it to a
noise?
minor key.
Was that Obi-Wan's crate dragon noise?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's actually probably my favorite music. Maybe not moment because it's not obvious when you first watch it, but that's probably my favorite like little Easter egg there.
Yeah.
So I'll pick a different one for later. But yeah, we got to talk about it. One we don't have a lot to talk about here. Attack of the Clones, not known for having a lot of different themes or motifs. There's really only one major one that's introduced. That being,
I think it. Are you going to say it?
I mean, you can go for it.
It's Across the Stars, right?
Parentheses.
The
Love theme from Attack of the Clones.
Oh,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh no.
For some
Gotta be
reason,
specific.
it gets that parentheses every time on the soundtrack.
I'm not sure why I love it, but I'll go ahead and talk about it because that is one of my favorites. It's probably the one that gets stuck in my head the most, that I will whistle and hum around the house, especially while I'm working. And I think it sounds really good. My theory as to why I like it so much is I watched a lot of behind the scenes stuff as a kid, and I still like behind the scenes stuff today. But when I was watching it, every time they would transition to the next part of what they were going to talk about, they would play that theme. It seemed like every time for Attack of the Clones.
I mean, it's single-handedly one of the most iconic songs in Star Wars. I think when I hear people say like, "Oh, what's your favorite song from Star Wars?" Across the Stars, parentheses, the
love theme from
love theme
Attack
from
of the
Attack of the
Clones.
Clones.
Attack of the Clones
In all caps.
in all caps.
No, I don't think it's in all caps, but still. Well, Revenge of the Sith has a very famous main theme. Even did a music video that was out on MTV back in 2005. Battle of the Heroes, which I know a lot of people like. It plays at the beginning of your scene that you were mentioning, and there's a little bit that comes up with some of the drums and this 5/4 time signature that it uses, but then it really comes out during the fight. I, however, actually really don't like this song, so I did not choose it.
I think your Uber's outside actually now.
Yeah, seriously. I know a lot of people really like it. It's not one of my favorites. What I'm choosing from Revenge of the Sith that I want to talk about is not a theme as much, but is the use that John Williams has for the DS era. Are y'all familiar with this?
I'm not.
Okay, so...
Is that when God comes from the sky?
That's a Deus Ex Machina. That's okay. That's okay. So Dies Irae, meaning Day of Wrath. It's from it's
Mozart.
Well, it's been used for even since way before Mozart.
John Williams,
all the way back to John Williams. So go
How
all the
many
way
years
back
before the Battle of Yavin was
to it's Yavin. Gregorian chant. Hilariously, that I, as someone who always mispronounces stuff, am like, but Star Wars words, I got them right. I got those ones right. Goes back to Gregorian chant used often in Requiem Mass. So after someone has died, a service of the dead, and it's like... and I can probably put this in because it is not copyrighted, so we'll have just heard just a little bit of it. It's used all the time throughout movies. The most famous one I can think of is the very beginning of The Shining. As you're going into, I can't remember the name of the hotel, but that long drive is just playing in the background. And
is it the Yates?
Yeah, the Bates Motel. They're going to the Bates Motel in The Shining. As there's so many times as Anakin is falling into this like madness, into evil, Williams goes back to the DS era, which he uses two other times in what my other favorite music moment is that I'll just allude to right now. And it's this beautiful but horribly tragic use of the phrase. And it's one of those phrases that for any of us, whether you listen to a lot of classical music, whether you listen to a lot of religious music, you hear it, you go, oh, I have heard that before. And I think that the way that Williams puts in such a familiar phrase over and over again, it almost makes us feel, as people watching Anakin fall into this tragedy, or fall, I mean, he chooses it, right? There's almost a familiarity with Anakin that makes us feel it alongside him and feel for him. So I just really love Williams' use of that.
Yeah.
But moving on, I don't want to talk a ton about the OT because we've talked so much, but I want to let y'all talk if you want. For A New Hope, I love Leia's theme. Empire, I put the Imperial March, of course, and Return of the Jedi, the Emperor's theme. Any ones y'all want to talk about from the original trilogy here?
I mean, I was going to say Leia's theme.
Yeah. Leia's theme gets stuck in my head almost as much as Across the Stars, parentheses, love theme from Attack of the Clones.
Exactly, thank you. All caps.
All caps.
I think for me that's actually a little bit more iconic than, or at least it's easier to get stuck in my head than Across the Stars, Leia's theme. Yeah, I was going to bring that one up too.
How about the Force theme? That one stick out to y'all as well too.
Can you hum it?
The Force, that's the Binary Sunset theme.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I just know it as Binary Sunset.
It's actually called the Force theme.
Oh.
And actually, this is a great place for me to tell y'all the two of the places I love going to learn more about all kinds of scores, but specifically Star Wars scores. There was a great podcast. I think it got like canceled. I don't know what happened. It stopped airing. It was on, I don't even remember the name of the network it was on, but it was called Star Wars Oxygen by this guy, David W. Collins, who works at Lucasfilm, has like a degree from like Berkeley or something like that, like some kind of music school, and has studied a lot of music theory. And he had like 45 episodes of him going through all the Star Wars movies and talking about some of the choices. He's met John Williams, like he's kind of in that field. He's done like some voice work for some of the Star Wars video games, and he's done some of the music for them as well too. So he's like he's part of the scene and loves it. He also has his own podcast now called The Soundtrack Show, which I'll put all these links. This is going to be like a billion links in this episode's description.
Go ahead and link to that video of Star Wars without John Williams. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'll put that one in there too. Yeah. Why not? We're just throwing them all in there at this point. And what's really cool is he talks about all these things, but also gives you insight from someone who actually works there. Another great place, if you don't want to listen, is there's a professor from Tufts University called Frank Lehman, and he has a great website where all of these things are actually, he's written out, like, you know, on the music scale, how these themes go, when they're used, what they're signifying, and what some of the traditional uses of these chords or these time signatures have meant throughout Western music in particular. And that stuff is so incredibly interesting to me to think about. Like, John Williams is not just picking Battle of the Heroes is in 5/4 time signature, not just because John Williams was feeling like, just want to kind of mix it up today. It's like, no, it's uncomfortable. 5/4 sets us on edge. It's not common time. The same way that watching these two brothers fight to the death should be making us feel uncomfortable. Like that's the kind of stuff that's so interesting about what Williams does. That's why people say he's a genius.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So both of those places, great places to go. We are to go into the sequel trilogy here, which I think has the highest highs and lowest lows. Let's start off with The Force Awakens, which I think is one of the absolute best things Williams has ever done. Race theme, absolutely incredible, recognizable the moment you hear it, even with either the chimes or the bells, and then into her actual sweeping theme. There's the Jedi steps at the very end as she's on Ahch-To or Ahch-To. How do you pronounce that one?
Ahch-To, I think.
Ahch-To.
Bless you.
There's... You've got Kylo Ren has two great themes. There's my favorite is Poe's motif, which only appears twice in the movie. It's this sweeping theme again, you can find it in the episode description, of just kind of all of Poe's excellence in the air. And it appears very rarely. It's not a fully fleshed out theme, but it's this beautiful, just kind of like incredibly inspirational, thing that goes along with Poe being a really good pilot.
One hell of a pilot.
That's true. Yeah. But then into Last Jedi: Rise of Skywalker, I really thought were Williams' weakest material and like the dude is getting up there. Like, to not say anything about how talented he is, but there were no real standouts for me on The Last Jedi or
Even
Rise
with
of
the
Skywalker.
throne room?
What?
Even with the red throne room?
I thought some of that was okay. My favorite thing in The Last Jedi is Rose has this kind of friendship theme that I quite like. I don't think it's anything super special, but it's melancholy. It's it's a little jovial that I like. And then Rise of Skywalker, the title theme, which is actually just called obviously the Rise of Skywalker, is great and inspirational and uplifting. But again, it's just like nothing about it really draws a lot of emotion out of me.
I personally didn't care for all the stuff related to Palpatine, but I really enjoyed the music during that part. Just the deep bass choir sounds and the way it matched up with what was going on in the scene, just in the background.
Very cool.
That was really sweet.
I have not seen it since theater, so I don't have a lot of good memory.
Okay. I mean, if I'm being honest, like, and I like the sequel trilogy more than probably most people do.
Sure.
I mean, but I do also think what you said about some of the highest highs as well as the lowest lows tracks.
And not just music, but like across the board in that trilogy.
That's I was thinking kind of like the larger picture there too. But honestly, when I was driving over here, I was trying to think of iconic music moments from the sequel trilogy. Where I can think of Duel of the Fates and Battle of the Heroes and Binary Sunset or the Force theme.
Yes.
And I really, from the sequel trilogy, like Rey's theme was what stood out to me the most. But from Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, aside from the trailer of Rise of Skywalker, which took the Star Wars theme and
it changed the key a little bit.
Yes, that was fantastic.
But that's not John Williams. That's just some guy in a in a computer.
Sorry, but I couldn't really think of anything from the latter two movies that stood out to me in the same way that other tracks do from the other Skywalker
and the Force
films.
Awakens did have that. Like every time Kylo Ren's ship lands, like bum 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 bum.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of really great things happening there. There's a lot of great themes, and they're not. And I am someone that will defend The Last Jedi till the day I die. I love that movie. I think it's like right up there with A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. We're not going to turn this into. I'm sick of people arguing about the movie on the internet, so that's not what we're going to do here. But I will say that the thing I think is the weakest about it is like there are no huge musical standout moments for me, except the very end as Luke and Kylo meet for the first time in person.
Yeah. Well, in person.
Yeah.
I did the quote fingers there for
I'm
listeners.
sure people figured it out. If anyone's this far into the Star Wars special that we're doing, they obviously are also on board with Star Wars. So
Or they're having trouble hitting pause. It's the one that's
like
the
an hour in
triangle
and
with the
can't-
2 little sticks next to it.
all right, well that's just kind of some of the themes I wanted us to mention. Let's go around and share some of our favorite musical moments. We'll start with you, Andrew.
Duel of the Fates is probably my favorite Star Wars score or track across all the movies. I think if I'm thinking of standout musical moments in all of Star Wars, like Duel of the Fates has to take the cake and then some Jawa juice as well as probably my favorite.
Wash it
personally.
down with some blue milk. I hear you.
Exactly, right there, and some spotchka too. But yeah, Duel of the Fates is single-handedly my favorite Star Wars musical moment. Just that whole
Fight, the
encapsulates
sequence
that
and
duel. So well.
I'd say when Han Solo decides to come back and blast some stuff out of Luke's way.
Yeah,
Or
Yahoo!
like the people that are following Luke and he just blasts away. The music that plays right then.
that swells up right there.
Oh,
yeah.
I just what a incredible moment. When Darth Maul has already ignited one lightsaber blade and that's all you've seen up until that point. Like in all the Star Wars movies that had come out. And then the second one comes out, the way that lines up with Duel of the Fates
Yeah.
being introduced. Very, very, very good. The other one that comes to mind, I don't even know if this is... I would have to go back and watch it, but when Anakin is riding away on a speeder in episode 2...
They play Duel of Fates again.
Huh?
They play Duel of the Fates
Yeah,
again.
but it feels slightly different.
It's
It's
a
not
re-record,
an
yeah.
exact copy of Duel of the Fates, but it's mostly Duel of the Fates. But it feels a little different. That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
The opening scene to Revenge of the Sith.
I was gonna mention
the
that too,
music,
yeah.
the
Those
music
drums,
plus
yeah,
the
those
action
really deep
happening.
tenor drums, yeah.
Yeah.
And just that was, we have a lot more stuff like that now, but they put so much work into that scene,
Yeah.
and everything else had been kind of slow and more zoomed in, and this was just the biggest battle that it felt like. I was like, oh, this is what the Clone Wars were.
Yeah.
This is why they were referring to it, and this is where you get to see them be pilots. But the music just enhances everything
Yeah.
there. Also, the music with and like the unfortunate Anakin walking into the Jedi Temple with all the clone troopers.
Anakin's dark deeds.
Yeah, that's the name of the track.
Yep.
Does
You
it-
like that one.
Oh yeah.
You like what it just reminds you of.
No.
He didn't say that.
Good thing we're recording this.
Yeah, right. That's a good call, though. That I think Revenge of the Sith had some really great.
Padme's ruminations as well. That's a really good one too.
Oh, well, is that when they're kind of having that?
It goes and it just kind of
Mind-link
repeats
moment.
over and over again. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. My favorite moment is actually two that kind of bookend each other. The very famous one being Luke arriving back at the Lars homestead to see the charred remains of his uncle and aunt, and actually the very end of that, as Luke kind of decides to go out. This is the hero's journey where he's going to choose to leave his home. That's actually, we get the Dies Irae plays with these really strong. I don't know what instrument it is. It sounds like some. It probably is I would assume cello or a bass. There's also some horns there as well. What I love about this, there's only one other time that exact version of the Dies Irae, it sounds just exactly like a needle drop, appears, and it is in The Force Awakens, as Finn has just been taken out by Kylo Ren, and we see the lightsaber
Ooh,
jiggle,
that's a
and
great
as
one.
it goes into Rey's hand, the exact same notes play, and it's so cool.
Just got
because,
goosebumps.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
because
same.
Luke has chosen his journey at the beginning of The Force Awakens, but Rey doesn't accept who she is as a Force wielder until the end when she does that, and it's the same kind of like, your destiny has been chosen. Now, I don't know the next two movies really lived up to that, but that one moment is actually really great,
lot of
and I
hope.
love the way it was a callback. And that's the kind of callbacks that I think work best with the sequel trilogy, not ones that are like, let's have another Death Star, but no, like, how are these characters similar where we're using some of these things to draw parallels, but not telling the same story over and over again.
Right.
I do have to say, we're talking about music moments, but as far as Star Wars movie moments, that Rey the saber flying to Rey is probably one of the best
It's a great
Star Wars movie moments.
And just what it meant culturally too.
Yeah.
Like just it flies past the person you thought it was going to be, and she catches it and just sets us up for this. Like, okay, now we have, like, Disney has transitioned to, like, now we're going to have more female leads in these action roles. And just so much packed into.
Yeah,
Packed
I think
into
it
that.
flies past the person you thought, and I've also heard people were expecting Luke to be the one there who appeared at the
Well,
end.
I think that's what's great because you don't know who's
Exactly.
You almost kind of think it's going to be Luke. It's like, no, it's
Yeah.
not. We have a new hero. So.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Part 4, though. It's time for part 4. And Andrew, this is going to be kind of your time to shine. Not that you haven't been shining already for all of us here. Brighter than the two suns over Tatooine. And so you have got for us, for any listeners who do enjoy, a lot of our listeners obviously enjoy reading. We do a podcast about books.
The sacred text.
You're going to give us 5 recommendations for people who want to maybe get into Star Wars books or check out some really, maybe they're not like, hey, I'm not super interested in reading Star Wars books, but you're going to tell us, no, actually, even if you don't love Star Wars, this is a great novel to pick up and read anyway. So take it away with some book recommendations for us.
First, a few ground rules.
What are some ground
There are
rules?
there are certain words that you cannot use in the titles: stars, Sith, master, apprentice, Jedi.
Why are these the rules?
Well, I guess
Are you looking at
I'm
notes?
heading
Okay.
out.
All right.
Okay, the rules are gone. What are your books?
This is a lawless lands now.
You might even call it the Outer Rim.
The Outer Rim, right? And we're
Never
reading. You
Yeah.
bet we're
Find a more
reading
wretched
today.
hive of scum and villainy.
That's. Oh, I guess Mos Eisley.
Mos Eisley is in the
Rim,
outer
so-
rim.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's everything outside of the rim.
Out. Yes, the outer side. Yeah.
Is
It's
there
the-
so in the Outer Rim? Is there just no government at all? Like, is it actually supposed to be like the Wild Wild West?
I think.
Not out here.
I mean, when you have like planets like Tatooine and like Mandalore as well, like I think.
But like
that,
those are so different. Like Mandalore has a structured government.
But as far as the Republic goes,
Republic doesn't
maybe
exist out here.
It doesn't exist out there maybe in the same ways that it does for
But that's what's weird is like Mandalore. I've watched the Clone Wars. Obviously, it has a very structured.
yeah.
Well,
it
government.
did.
It did. Before, yeah, you're right. It did
Before
have a
the
structured
dark
government.
times,
Before
before
the
the
Empire. But then you have Tatooine, which is like just a desert.
Do what you want.
Yeah, it's like there are no rules here at all. But it's fine. There's sometimes we don't have all these questions answered.
You're right.
Like, what was Finn going to say to Rey?
That's something
Or
that will never.
who was Sifo Dyas? You don't think anyone did a second, like, did y'all, when you watched Attack of the Clones, did you just expect we were going to learn what that was? Because it was never answered.
I kind of thought they were going to say that, oh, like Palpatine was Sifo Dyas.
That's
or
what it's
something.
hinted at, but it's never
Yeah.
confirmed.
But it definitely wasn't. so-
Yeah.
Or like also, where did C-3PO get the red arm? You know, we'll never know.
I didn't
there was
even
a comic
recognize
book.
him.
There was a comic book
Yes,
that came
true.
out. I read it.
just to find out.
Just to answer that question.
I will say, I think that all those questions leave room for a 12-part series
Yes.
of 30-minute episodes. And then if not this series, the one that comes out next
One
month.
after that, and after that, you know, let's just talk about the future of stuff.
We'll get there in a minute.
Book recommendations. Let's hear them.
Yes. So I like that you were asking for recommendations for people who are entering into Star Wars books, maybe unsure of where to start or kind of need some convincing. So I picked some to kind of to cater towards that, starting with Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. And I think there's kind of like a theme in the books that I chose for the most part are that they have very familiar elements to readers who are just like that, who are new to Star Wars books and maybe need an easier entry point. Because I think for me, when I was diving into Star Wars books, is that I didn't know where to start. And it was kind of intimidating that way because there's, thousands out there. And Lost Stars, it takes place during the same timeline as the original trilogy with two characters who become lovers who are like divided by the war, by the Galactic Civil War, one on the rebellion side, one on the Empire side, and it follows, some of the iconic moments in the original trilogy, the Battle of Hoth, they're both there to some extent, the one on the Imperial side like interacts with Darth Vader from the perspective of someone who has only heard like the myths and legends about him, and Battle of Endor and all that. So it encompasses the timeline of the original trilogy, but also is a very tragic love story, which it's very gripping in that way, as Claudia Gray writes the story in a really fantastic way that wrestles with your emotions. And I definitely wanted to cry, and if I didn't want to, then I did. But it's very familiar as far as the timeline goes, and so it's very relatable for someone who might not, they don't need like prerequisites necessarily for it. If they're familiar with the movies, then it's a very easy jumping in point because it pretty much follows the timeline of the original trilogy. So it's a very easy access point, and a very gripping, emotional, heart-wrenching story as well.
Yeah, and listeners shouldn't be potentially scared away by the YA kind of genreification of it, because I was for a long time. I was like, I don't want to read a YA novel because there's adult Star Wars books. Why not read them? And a lot of people told me, no, you got to go read this book. And I read it. I was like, actually, it's really great. It's a really fast read. I was really impressed too. I think it's a great place for people to start.
Yeah, I think it's a long book too, but it's also, like you said, it's a fast read. And
yes,
I definitely wanted to keep turning the pages my first time through. Speaking of familiar, my number 2 recommendation is the Revenge of the Sith novelization.
It's so good.
It does everything, like everything that the movie missed. I think that the book picks up and does really great, and does even better. Like what the movie, what the scenes in the movie were, the book picked up to the next level.
What for instance would you get out of it that you wouldn't get out of the movie?
Yes,
can you give us an example?
Yeah, that's a important question that I was wondering too because I was wondering if it's just going to be kind of the script of the movie,
sure.
But something that I took away from it was a deeper understanding of Anakin's turn. I feel like a lot of people felt that it happened too quick, that it was too sudden, and we kind of, for example, in his joining the council but not the rank of master, in the movie, it seems like he's kind of arrogant in that moment, and it's like, oh, I want to be called master like the rest of you. But in the book, it expands on what it actually means to be a Jedi Master, which is access to certain archives in the Jedi Council, in the Jedi archives, which would have given him more answers as to how to help Padme and understand the visions he was having and the dreams that he was having. So really kind of taking that moment, for example, and deepening it as to what it really meant for him in that moment, rather than just him wanting to be called the Jedi Master. So it tells the scenes that we know very well, but it also adds the scenes in between, like, a scene between Palpatine and Count Dooku when they were waiting for Obi-Wan and Anakin to arrive to that, bridge, and their conversation beforehand, and Dooku being totally oblivious until the last moment when it kind of the pieces fell together for him, where he understood what exactly was happening when Palpatine gave the famous, do it. So it adds those scenes in between.
Couldn't quite get a hand on the situation until then.
Well, Dooku lost his grip. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I shouldn't. It's not the Jedi way.
But I would certainly like to.
Oh my goodness.
But, sorry, I'm too dangerous to be kept alive.
Daniel, no, I need him.
His fate will be the same as ours.
This has become a quote podcast.
I want to add that one of my favorite moments,
because you've read this before, correct?
I have read it. Okay. I read it. I actually think I've read 2 novelizations before the movie came out. I would actually recommend this one. I do not recommend trying to read The Dark Knight. The movie's just so good, and the book is literally the script. with a few descriptors added for things that weren't clear by lines. But one of my favorite moments is between Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and a clone trooper, and they're like, hey, I found this Jedi baby. And the clone trooper's like, how do we know it's a Jedi? And the baby's actually Yoda. He goes, my lightsaber, the first hint would be, and just like takes out the clone trooper. Oh,
Yes.
it's so good.
When they're infiltrating the temple.
Right.
Yeah.
So they can like go and find the security tapes. Oh man.
So good.
Why didn't they put that in there?
Right? See? Which, honestly, the book takes the story of the movie to a whole nother level with funny moments like that, too.
Right. Maybe they'll go back and add stuff to the movies. I've always wanted to do that.
No.
Some special editions. They can add in the Padme scenes, which actually I forget if those were in the novelization, those scenes with Padme and starting the rebellion. But
I don't remember because it was a very long time.
It's been a while and a half, yeah. My third pick is a book that I actually covered on season 2 of my show, which is Master and Apprentice, also by Claudia Gray, who wrote Lost Stars. Again, with familiarity, it's a story centered on Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. So, if you're familiar with those two Jedi, especially Qui-Gon, he's kind of the unofficial main character of the book. Then, otherwise, you don't really need some more prerequisites. Like, these are two Jedi that anyone who's seen the movies know, at least.
Yeah.
And I think so. As far as story goes, and the characters that they follow, at least those two right there are very familiar to readers who would have seen the movies. I also think that it deepens the understanding of Qui-Gon as a character who I wish got more time on screen. He's my favorite Jedi, and we really understand his relationship with the Council. I think we hear that he's kind of this roguish kind of Jedi, but in Master and Apprentice we really understand why and his philosophy towards the Force and what it means to be a Jedi, and try to make positive change, change for good in the galaxy as this, as one peacekeeper. And so I personally appreciated that just because I do love his character, but we also get more of his dynamic with Obi-Wan and what that looked like before Phantom Menace, which is not what I was expecting the first time that I went into the book, but I think it made me appreciate even more The Phantom Menace as a movie to see where they had been before, and it makes his death in The Phantom Menace all the more sad and heart-wrenching. But again, just kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, characters that we know and can relate to right off the bat, driving that story forward. I've got Light of the Jedi as my number 4 pick, and I don't think these are in any particular order, but maybe they are. But Light of the Jedi is the first book in the new, or I guess relatively new, High Republic literary initiative that Star Wars is on right now. And it's a time period that's set 200 years, I think, before The Phantom Menace. So it's an untapped era of Star Wars. So if someone's looking to dive into a Star Wars book and Star Wars for the first time, this is something that every Star Wars reader, collectively, when these books came out, did not know anything about this era. Yoda's name dropped a couple times, but that's about it. And so it's a fresh step into Star Wars literature, and it's a really sprawling epic. I don't know if that's actually the right literary term to use, but I think starting into a whole new era of Star Wars, of untapped potential, untapped storytelling, Light of the Jedi is, and I guess that's also what I've been covering in season 3 of Outer Rim Reads. So I've been enjoying it, reading through it for the first time, and kind of this entry point into a totally new era of Star Wars, which, for someone who's looking to start into Star Wars books, you literally don't have to know much of anything.
Okay.
Exactly, of Star Wars books to be able to jump into that story. So,
Yeah. And I actually look forward to more content like that. I think that there has to be a certain amount of fan service. You have to connect certain things into the universe. But my hope, at least, is that eventually we'll be able to do entire trilogies that are not connected to the Skywalkers or the Jedi Temple or any of that. Just get far enough away.
yeah.
It sounds like that's what they're doing.
I will say the Jedi Temple is in the book, minimally, but
it's okay to do it a little bit. I think
yeah.
the current TV series are trying very hard to connect them, and I understand it. I'm just hoping that we also get some stuff that's removed.
Luke Skywalker does not show up in Light of the Jedi, though. So there,
thank you.
Unlike every new piece of Star Wars content that's coming out. But I would highly recommend that, and just the newness and freshness of it. And you don't need to know anything else about it, so. And the last book that I've got here is, I think, still my favorite Star Wars book, Thrawn by Timothy Zahn. For anyone familiar with I guess new readers wouldn't really be familiar with the expanded universe, but he was the villain after Return of the Jedi, as far as the books that were coming out went.
He was like the new emperor, like the new big bad.
Yeah, one of the emperor's like old warlords that he was then up against Luke and Han and Leia and Lando and all that. But I picked this book because I think it's a really interesting take on a Star Wars story. He is in this book fighting for the Empire, which I think is cool. Often we get
You think that's cool? Interesting.
Right? I think
and I think that was cool.
And I think fighting for the Empire is cool.
All right.
It's kind of like when you see the Imperial logo on people's cars, you're like, oh dear.
That's cool. I think that's nuts.
How did this happen? We're smarter than this.
Apparently not. But I think, it's just a shift in perspective, seeing a story from the other side's perspective. And he's, I have a lot of complex thoughts about Thrawn that I don't, he's definitely not a Palpatine, pure evil villain.
Sure.
Much more complex. But I think what I like about the story is that there's a lot of kind of Sherlock Holmes elements to it, kind of some detective work in the story where it's not your traditional, blasters blazing, lightsabers flying everywhere. It's a different pace. And I really likened Thrawn and his partner throughout the book as Sherlock and Watson. So it's really an enjoyable story from that angle. But I think also just reading a Star Wars book from the perspective of someone who we wouldn't, from a perspective that we wouldn't maybe be used to or think that we would be diving into a book about was really cool. And it's still, I think, my favorite. So, but I like the Sherlock Holmes detective element to that book especially. So,
I have a follow-up question to this. So, the Thrawn character existed in the expanded universe, which was later decanonized and set as legends.
Yes.
There is no book called Thrawn in the expanded universe, now Legends, right?
Yes.
There's
there
only
is
the canonical version.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go and get the book Thrawn, the only one that you can
There's
get
only one
is...
book called Thrawn.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we have the right one.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Thrawn because I read the original Thrawn trilogy back in the probably early 2000s. So I was in middle or high school, and then I've read the first Thrawn book. I've not, and I did this. The second one's with like Anakin.
Yes,
it's time jumps and stuff. Okay, I've read that.
A little
bit
weaker than the first, I think.
I did not read the third one. One of the things that I really like about Thrawn is the respect that he has for all of his enemies, and the way that he studies their art and like actually tries to find this and not just study them to beat them, but studies them to appreciate them. And it's this very he's clearly, I mean, he's a villain, but and you're saying no, Andrew's saying maybe not a villain. He fights for the Empire, but he is always using the Empire for his own means. Like, he is not part of the Empire because he agrees with all of its philosophy. He's part because he thinks the Empire provides him with what he needs for his own ambitions, which we won't get into here. And I think which it kind of has to be, because it's going to be hard if you just have a main character who's like, I just like being an evil tyrant. Yeah. That is hard to root for. Thrawn is very much not that. So great recommendations. Yeah, I love that. I'm really hoping some of our listeners might go pick some of those up.
Yeah, I hope so. And I know that you were on for an episode.
Yeah, I did that with
when
you
we talked about some chapters of the Thrawn book. So
yeah,
but yeah, and I know there's some future of Star Wars that he might be involved in as well. But I hope that your listeners might pick up a few of those books or try them out. I do think Revenge of the Sith especially is as familiar as can get and is written perfectly. So
And what's great about a lot of the Star Wars books is they're so easily available. I can get them from the library or something so easily, and so I don't have to go out and spend, $25 in a hardback or something like that. And so those are great. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing those, Andrew.
I actually just saw that my library has all 3 bundled together as an ebook for the prequels. You can just check them out.
Yeah. As easy as that. That's actually how I began my Star Wars book journey, was just going to the library and picking them off the shelf and reading like a book a week. So
I checked in on your Twitter and saw that someone was reading through all the kind of written for a much younger audience Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi books.
Jedi Quest.
It was almost like
that's
that's the second
Jedi
one.
Apprentice.
Jedi Apprentice was first, and then
yeah.
Obi-Wan and Anakin was Jedi Quest. Yeah.
Which
I read
I want
all
to
of
go
those
back
as
to
a
those.
kid.
Yeah.
I read all of them as a kid.
I'm actually covering Jedi Quest on our Patreon bonus episodes,
fun.
which is very fun to revisit. I loved those as a kid, and they still hold up.
That's good. That's good to know.
I liked it when you would read a book and then you'd get to the halfway point and they had printed out pictures of movie stills just so you didn't have to read all that description. That was great. Well, it's time for episode 5, section 5.
Part 5.
Part 5.
A Star Wars story.
A Star Wars trivia story.
All right.
I have pulled all of these trivia questions from my mind based on obscure things that I remember from being really into Star Wars from age 5 until just now.
I'm scared.
And then, just to avoid too much arguing, I went and I verified certain facts.
Okay.
Now, there is one question, I will go ahead and say up front, that I can prove I'm right about. It's just the book is at my parents' house and it's out of print and I can't find the answer on the internet.
That's fair. Well, it's fair if I get that one right. So never
right.
mind. We'll talk about it later. What are the rules? Because Andrew and I are going against each other in this trivia. What are the rules?
All right. I feel like we should have both people write. You have to type out your answer.
Okay, that's fine.
Just in case you both get it right.
Fair enough.
But then you can say it out loud. Are you ready?
So, there's how many questions do we have?
It's ballpark 15. It depends on whether or not people struggle with some of the ones that I kind of think are easy.
Okay.
But we
Any
have
categories or anything, or just
roughly 5 behind the scenes questions.
Okay.
We have 5 regular movie questions, just about the movies themselves. It can span anything that's come out that is technically a movie. And then we have expanded...
Caravan of Courage, let's go.
And then we have...
That is technically a movie.
That is technically a movie.
Now.
Yes, but I technically haven't seen it yet. All right, behind the scenes question number 1. Why did Samuel L. Jackson get a purple lightsaber?
All right.
Okay.
We both answered.
Andrew, what you got?
So... I'm just so mad if I got this wrong. But why he had a purple lightsaber? To reflect him drawing on both light and dark in his Vapad lightsaber style, both blue and red, meshing together into purple, with also maybe a request of him asking for a purple lightsaber as well.
I'm just answering the second part of that, which is that Samuel L. Jackson went to George Lucas, said, "Why don't any Jedi have purple lightsabers? Those look sweet. Can I have one?" And Lucas said, "Sure. Why not?"
Yeah, so I think you both get points for this.
Okay.
The character itself, Andrew's right. He had a mix of... He has this whole thing in the Revenge of the Sith novelization about how he allows the dark side to flow through him, but he doesn't actually affect him, but he can draw on some of the power, which I think is dangerous, and I think it backfired. But also Samuel L. Jackson just liked the color purple. And
he asked.
You can actually watch the behind the scene. He goes, "Can I have a purple lightsaber?" Or he goes, "What decides the color?" And George Lucas goes, "Well, the good guys get blue and green, and the bad guys get red." And he goes, "Can I have a purple one?" He goes, "Maybe."
Like it's, I love that. Like there's like nerds like us who sit around and like come up, like you said, with he draws on this, and he draws on this, and it gets him. That's how he gets purple.
But actually,
and it's like
we'll explain it in post.
These two dudes are just like, "Can I have purple?" Yeah, sure. Why not? All right.
We're lucky that it kind of stopped there for a while, and then at the very end of Rise of Skywalker,
I do not like the yellow.
Turns the yellow.
I think it's a great saber.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, what is the name of the sound company for Star Wars? And I'm going to go ahead and say that it's not Skywalker Sound. That's not the one that I'm talking about. This is the company that George Lucas made after Skywalker Sound.
I have my answer.
You have it?
I've got my answer.
All right.
Okay.
You want
Daniel
go first?
goes first.
No, I'll go first. THX.
Yes.
I got 2 words for you. John Williams.
Okay, you get a point.
What?
He's right.
You weren't going
No,
for
no, no.
THX? Oh, okay.
It
I
was
was like,
THX.
no, I'm taking this very seriously over here. THX
You get 2
named
points
for
'cause you actually
Lucas's
got it right.
directorial debut, THX 1138.
That's right.
Oh.
It was about
Sounds like a droid.
bald people who live
Robert
in
Duvall.
a infinite room.
It was it was not about just about it was like heavily influenced by 1984. It's like a dystopian kind of movie. It was actually his student film that he did at USC is where he was, and then he developed it into a full length film after he graduated from college.
And it reflects how he saw the world at the time, and it had some really interesting themes. But yeah, it's called THX 1138, and then his
Sound company's called THX.
sound company, and the whole point of it was to get better sound in theaters because he was making stuff that sounded
Wait,
really
is
good.
that the
Yeah, THX.
T-
It's used for. It's not
Yeah,
just.
okay,
Yeah, it's not
yeah.
just used in Star Wars movies. It's used everywhere now. But like that was that was him.
interesting? Yeah.
company. Yeah.
I like that.
All right, question number 3. How did they make the waterfalls on Naboo? What did they use for that special effects shot?
Ooh.
That's a great question.
Go ahead and answer first, Andrew.
Daniel, why don't you take us?
I have no idea. I don't know.
I'm gonna
I do not
go
know.
on a limb and say that they used legitimate waterfalls in Spain and
No, they
Italy.
filmed that part in Italy.
And had a water hose that they just used for the water.
Yeah, most of the budget went to water.
To water and also clones.
200,000 gallons of water.
Millions
Tell
more
us.
on the way.
I feel like both of us are wrong. Tell us now.
Yes.
Phil's holding me back.
Give me everything. Yeah, they used salt.
That's salt?
They poured a bunch of salt,
What?
and it looks just like a waterfall in the distance.
Oh, interesting.
So they built like this miniature scene, and then actually, the scene is photocomped, I think, and then they use salt being poured in front of a blue screen.
Interesting.
To get that effect.
Is this
Okay.
something that we could, upon going back and looking for it, would we be able to decipher the salt?
I don't know if you would be able to see that it's
You
salt.
got go lick your screen. You can
Yeah,
paste
right,
it.
exactly. Does that tie in? And we're talking about parallels across the Skywalker saga. Great, when he licks the stuff in the ground, he's like, salt.
It's salt.
Looks at the camera, like
It's definitely not snow, y'all.
definitely not a waterfall
too
too,
hot.
apparently.
Yeah.
So
I learned that from Corridor Crew. I have watched a lot of behind the scenes stuff
Okay.
about Star Wars, but Corridor Crew's YouTube channel revealed that to me, and just want to
Interesting.
give them a shout out.
are we going to link that in the episode description?
If I have space left, I
Yeah, right.
guess.
It's going to be a CVS length,
Yeah, it's
receipt
gonna be like a
length
receipt
episode
there,
description.
You have to go visit your librarian and ask her for the full extensive archive.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay. Number 4. What material did they use to make the first lightsaber handle? And if you can name 2 materials, bonus points. But name a material they used to make the actual prop for the handle.
All right, who goes first this time?
You talk first, I talk first.
You can shoot first.
I put plaster.
Okay. And Andrew, what you got?
I'm going with some. I'm going to go with plastic and
All right.
aluminium.
Aluminum. No, it was actually, the old-timey cameras where they would hold the flash in one hand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the handle for that flash.
Oh.
Huh.
Or it's the handle for the camera. I can't remember.
But it's
It's a
just
camera
handle
part.
on an old camera.
Yes. And
Interesting.
those cameras
Which I
were-
heard that they were made out of plaster. back in
Maybe
the 19th
plastic
century.
They were
with a
made out
hint
of metal.
aluminium. Okay.
And that specific model camera was not super expensive and kind of just like cheap and lying around everywhere. And then people
Southern
started
California,
finding
so they're
out
like,
that they could make an exact replica of that lightsaber prop, and they are very expensive now because
Interesting.
that's what people want to do with
Because of that.
Cool.
And then the handle itself, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker's lightsaber,
Ray Palpatine's.
Ray Palpatine's lightsaber.
Rey
the
Skywalker,
grip is made out of windshield wiper blades, like the rubber part.
That like black part at the bottom.
Yeah, they cut it
Oh,
off
wow.
and glued it on as the
Interesting.
handle.
Did
Now
you
when
already know this, or did you Google it?
I already knew that. That's what's so fun about this
cool.
trivia
Yeah.
is I didn't have to look up.
You just like knew them off the top of your
I
head.
just know these weird things.
I'm hoping that you're going to ask a behind the scenes question that you knew from a while ago and told me. So what's
We're
our
going
next
for-
question?
Right now, by the way, the score is Andrew 1, me 2.
I think I definitely am ahead 3-1. But
That's
yeah.
not happening.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Phil.
All right, which actor played 4 characters in episode 1?
Oh. Wait, can I tell you the 4 people he played?
Yes, but let's Andrew, you got anything?
4 characters in episode 1?
Yeah.
1 actor?
Yep. They really got their money's worth. We didn't even have clones back then.
Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Can I Google it?
No, you cannot
Yeah,
Google it.
right. I have no. I'm just gonna say Liam Neeson because he's a disposal for God. So I don't know.
All right. Danny, what you got?
Unfortunately, not only can I remember his name, I can only come up with 2 names right now, and the other 2 characters, I feel like one might be a pod racer. The same actor that plays Newt Gunray also plays Ki-Adi-Mundi. I do know that.
Oh.
And he plays 2 other characters, and I don't remember who they are.
Do you remember like where they were in the movie, or are you having trouble with
No,
their
I
names?
can't remember any of it. You can
Was
just tell us.
one Ben Quadraneros?
He's just a CGI character.
Oh, okay.
No. So Silas Carson,
That's
he's
right,
an
yeah.
English actor. He played Newt Gunray, Lot Dodd, who is
Yeah.
a Nemoidian who's in the Senate.
Uh-huh.
You said Mundi?
I always say Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah.
I always said Ki-Adi-Mundi.
I would
so.
say Ki-Adi-Mundi. So
Okay.
kind of,
And then Antidar Williams, who lasted exactly 43 seconds.
Oh, at the very beginning.
At
He's
the
the, the one time you
Oh,
see what he
in
actually
the-
looks like. He's the guy who's driving the
the
Republic
pilot.
ship.
Oh.
By the way,
Sir!
another piece of this is true. I read it in a biography on Lewis. This is that he named Newt Gunray. It is a play on words for Newt Gingrich. Believe it or not.
I think I've heard that.
Who
Yeah.
Lucas, obviously, like many Hollywood types, lifelong Democrat, was not
Idolized.
happy
Oh, yeah.
with Newt Gingrich's policies in the mid to late 90s, and so thought, I'm going to make this foolish politician in my movie slightly named him. I gotta be honest, I think that like there's no way you would possibly know that if you hadn't read like Newt Gunray is not that close to Newt Gingrich. Like it was, I watched an interview. It was like, "Yeah, did you guys catch what I did there?" And it's like, I mean, no one caught what you did there, George. Like, no one got.
It's not exactly Kit Fisto or Savage
Yes.
Press.
Oh, just right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was something that he was doing to try to explain how he felt about
I think I have heard
about
that.
politics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, regular movie questions. Name 5 handmaidens of the Queen, and I'll go ahead and say Padme doesn't count because she is the Queen. Spoiler alert.
I got 1. Wait, no, I should be. Oh no, I got 2. I got 2. Go ahead, go first, Andrew.
I know there's Sabe, Corday,
That's all I got.
Dorme.
Ugh.
Um,
Can you keep conjugating those, buddy?
Yeah, right.
So the secret to
no.
this is to be able to iterate through the alphabet quickly enough.
I'm blank. Oh no, this is the
Yeah.
worst time to blank. I've read the books where we meet all of them.
Sabe, I've got Sabe, Corday, and I forgot Dorme, but she's in Attack of the Clones. She's there at the
Dorme.
beginning. I forgot.
Oh no, gosh, Zorb.
So I didn't include the Attack of the Clones ones. That included the 5 from episode 1.
Okay.
Those still counts. You still get points for that. But Sabe, Rabe, Erite, Sashay, and Yane.
Okay, Yane. Okay, Yane and
And
Rabe,
Yane
I
played the
should've-
saxophone.
Yeah, right. That's a great question too.
All right, that was a good
The
one.
handmaidens
Yeah, yeah.
are I don't,
It's still 1
they
to
are
2 here.
BA. Yeah.
Bonus question. Name 2 people that played handmaidens that now have very established careers.
Keira Knightley
And,
Natalie Portman, 'cause
Rose.
they,
No.
you know, she played a handmaid.
Technically correct.
Corday was played by She was in Sunshine. She was in those X-Men movies. What's her name?
Keira Knightley, Natalie Portman.
No.
Rose Byrne.
Rose Byrne. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
All right.
I failed. You send that to. Hey, look, why does he say that? She didn't fail at all. She
No,
did
she
exactly.
She actually did exactly what
You
her
were
job
a
She took the
decoy
shrapnel.
and you died instead. Like that's exactly what you're supposed to do, Corday. You did a great job. It's like I like.
That's the deleted scene.
Like,
No, Corday, you
Natalie-
actually did a great
Corday,
job.
This was the plan all along.
Hard disagree.
You know what you signed up for.
Well, also, why is their system so the opposite of what you would usually think?
Yeah.
Usually you go from, like, you have a kid, and then you become a senator, and then you become a queen.
Yeah,
But this was
Instead of-
completely in
you become
reverse.
queen at 14.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it does seem like she has a significant amount of power. She's not just like a figurehead
Oh,
as
no,
Queen of
it's
Naboo. She
legit.
has a lot of power.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. What type of grain does Anakin like the least?
What movie is this from?
Is it
Episode
sand?
2. It's sand.
Oh, I didn't get that one. Sorry.
Bonus
It's
question.
coarse and rough and irritating, gets everywhere.
That's right. Why does he hate sand? Was the
Coarse and rough and irritating, it's every- yeah.
Not like here, though.
All right, 2-2. We're back
like
up.
you.
Yeah, you get that one.
Which elevator does Obi-Wan
Oh,
need
no.
R2 to activate?
Oh, that was a trivia question I asked once.
Oh,
Yeah?
really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's gotta hurt.
I don't know.
I know it's not 2187.
No, it's not. 31174.
He just
I
looked it
wonder
up.
how
I
you
just
knew
Googled
that.
it. I didn't know it.
Yeah, I didn't know
No.
that.
Do you guys know? I'm not going to say it here, but because I don't want to tell what my license plate is.
Yeah.
But my license plate is a play on Star Wars numbers. My actual to my Outback. Oh, now people know what car I drive.
Yeah, right. You're doxing
Just
yourself.
dox yourself.
You dox that yourself.
Is I wanted to get FN 2187. Couldn't get that. It was already taken. So I got another one that's another Fraser number like that elevator, like 31174, that like if you see my car, it just looks like a bunch of numbers that only like really, really nerdy Star Wars people have. It's not 1138 either. That one was already taken.
Yeah. I think the THX 1138 may have accidentally been assigned.
Yeah, like they didn't know
Multiple
the other
times.
one away. I tried that one too. It wasn't there, but that's my very nerdy. Is I pay $50 a year to the Department
to
of Motor
have that.
Vehicles to have a license plate that looks like a normal license plate. Like again,
actually-
it is
But
a
the number is
collection of
specialty.
letters and numbers that just stand for something in Star Wars.
Fun fact, they have a piece of software at the DMV that will detect if you are trying to put something inappropriate in your license plate.
Really?
Like if you're trying to do something.
Which is a good thing
Yes.
to keep that off the road.
The original point was to avoid slurs. They didn't want people automatically ordering license plates
something
that
that was
have
like
it.
hurtful or so, yeah,
Yeah.
offensive. Okay.
They when they were writing this article that I read, they tested it and they tried to see what they could get through, and they said we can't print any of the things that we got through. It was so many, and it's so inappropriate that we're just not allowed to print them. Our editor won't let us. Okay.
We have question 9.
Yes.
Number 9.
Name a major upgraded feature of super battle droids over the regular battle droids.
All right.
Is this like something that's stated in the movie, or
It is. You can see it in the movie,
I got
but
mine.
you might need to have read the novelization of one of the movies.
Oh, is it who goes first this time?
you talk first? I talk first. I already used
I'll
that.
talk first this time. I put a wrist rocket. They have wrist rockets.
That's true.
I think they're more armored because one gets shot in the battle of when the clones attack, and he just like straightens back up and maybe knocks one of the droids aside and just
keeps
goes,
going.
Yeah, keeps
Yep.
going. So
All right.
That's right. These are both right. So the wrist rocket, they have weapons built in, so they don't get their guns taken away, and then they can't do anything.
yeah.
And then the upgraded armor, they can get shot in one place and keep going, but also they put the head closer to the body, so you couldn't just cut the head off.
Oh, that's true. That's right.
And then in episode 3, they had even more advanced bots that were designed to fight Jedi with special weapons, and they can operate without their heads or without limbs because they just keep getting up because they have decentralized everything. And another thing is they're no longer connected to a mothership, so you can't just take out mothership to
that
end
was
the-
poor
for
designing.
all the flack that we give the Trade Federation, they really did learn how to produce better things as the movies went on.
Yeah, they learned clearly.
Yeah.
You know,
It
It's a
was
good
neat to see
corporation.
everything get upgraded over time, and the way they switched the clone trooper helmets. Like every iteration was a little
Yeah.
closer to what a stormtrooper would be,
True.
but their aim got worse and worse.
The trade-off, was it worth it?
You make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy because someone cut the head off of the original.
It's like just telephone, you know. I do. Just speaking about battle droids, reminded me of the cool fact that the heads of the B1 battle droids, the
originals.
the originals, are meant to reflect the kind of head, cranium structure of the Geonosians who constructed them.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
It's a little. You can see some semblance there from the droid to the maker.
yeah.
So-
Interesting. In their own image.
Yeah.
How many words does Darth Maul say in the first episode of Star Wars?
It's a non-zero number. I can tell you that.
That's true.
He will find your lost ship. That's Palpatine saying.
For those of you listening at home, everyone's looking at their fingers.
For some reason.
They're gonna start running out.
All right, I have a guess.
Okay.
You want to go first, Andrew, for this one?
Hang on, I'm still counting. I lost
Okay, he's
track.
still
I'm like,
counting.
Is it? I'm going to go with... Is it 16?
I had 17.
Wow. Okay. According to a 2015 blog post that I fact checked this on, it's 31.
31. Tell us
That's-
what words does he say? I assume you have them in front of you.
I don't have the words in front of me, but I can rattle some off. At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have our revenge.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. And then we... Did they fudge the numbers on your website?
Let's see if they have them listed. Here.
He's Tatooine is sparsely populated. If the homing trace is correct, I will find them quickly, Master.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
He also says, that's when he then says, at last reveal ourselves to the Jedi.
And then he also says, at one point, he's like, as he gets cut in half.
Oh, wait, no, that's all he says. Those are the two lines. Tatooine is sparsely populated. If the homing trace is correct, I will find them quickly, Master. And then at last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge. That's all he says.
That's it.
But he still looked super cool.
He sure did. Gosh, what a cool character.
All right, 5 more.
All right, expanded universe questions. What color was Admiral Thrawn?
Oh, blue.
Excuse me, Grand Admiral Thrawn.
We both know that one. We both get that one.
Yeah, blue.
Yeah, blue. In the Legends books, previously the expanded universe books, who does Luke Skywalker marry?
We both know it. Mara Jade.
Mara Jade, yeah.
Okay. What color was her lightsaber?
Purple.
What color was her lightsaber originally?
Pink, technically.
Yeah.
No,
Was
it
it
was
pink?
It was
Yeah.
ruby red, according to
It was
about to
pink,
say
but
red.
like
character-
purple was
the character's guy, but then later it became purple
Sure.
Okay.
because she was slightly better.
Yeah.
All right. This is the one that I'm going to have to go get the
All
book
right.
at my
Okay.
parents' house.
Okay.
But
We're tied 6-6 right now. By the way.
in the expanded universe, specifically, how many clones did the Emperor have made of himself?
Oh, I just saw this fact the other day.
Oh. Okay.
That shows what I do with my free.
I will. I'm gonna guess. So we will say at the time that people should know in the original non-canonical books, one of the things that happens is the Emperor has a bunch of clones who then fight, and then he clones other people. In fact, the end of the original Thrawn trilogy, which is not canonical anymore,
Is called the Emperor's New Clones.
is Luke fighting from a clone who was taken from his hand that was chopped off in Empire Strikes Back, a clone called Luke, spelled Luuke.
And Andrew enlightened us as to why that was okay, because Aunt Beru,
in A New Hope calls for Luke. And there it is, the foreshadowing all along.
so they weren't twins, they were triplets.
Now there
Luke,
are 3 of
Leia,
them.
and Luke.
I'm guessing 4.
What you got, Andrew?
I'm gonna go with 9.
Yeah, I think it's 12.
Okay.
Oh, 12.
It's a lot. And he ends up actually fighting 2 of them technically. He fights one, and then later he fights another one, but someone sabotaged it, and that's why he was able to defeat it.
Cloning
Interesting.
is one of the worst things you can introduce to a universe.
Cloning
any
and time
kind of
travel
franchise,
are
because
just
it's that
rough.
whole like they defeat the Emperor, then they have like even in Rise of Skywalker, is that a clone? Or it's unclear because there's like cloning tanks you kind of see, and
it is not his original body, obviously.
Exactly.
So yeah, they had been kind of growing, kind of. I forget the word, but it's
not
like
somehow Palpatine
Palpatine's
returned.
return. But now they just drew on the Legends material, so there was
Yeah, there you go.
precedent.
That's what people wanted.
Right? Yeah, that's what the
All
people
right.
wanted.
Kind of makes you wonder why they thought those were ideas that we should put into Legends.
Right? And we got rid of them for a reason.
What were Han and Leia's kids' names again in the expanded universe?
All right, I know all three of them.
Oh, they had 3. I know there was was there Jason?
Yes,
Jaina?
correct.
And Ben.
Jason,
Ben
Jaina,
Wren.
Jason, Jaina, and Anakin.
Yeah.
Anakin?
Later
Yeah,
they had
Jason,
Anakin.
Jaina, and Anakin.
It's a family name.
In the expanded universe, that Chewbacca dies trying to save Anakin and
That's
Vector
what
Prime.
you had said that earlier, and I was like, what? Okay. Okay.
Okay,
I'm up by
one
one.
last question.
Oh my goodness!
For
Lose
all the
this.
marbles.
Wow.
Bonus question.
No.
It's not for all the marbles.
Okay, I'm at 7. You're at 6.
So this is
And by the way, remember, if I win, I get to host your podcast.
Exactly. You annex my show.
What tool did they use to find the throne room in the old Death Star?
Like from Rise of Skywalker?
The answer is nothing, because that is the stupidest idea.
So Phil has the last laugh.
Oh my gosh, the fact that they would be like, you have to stand in this exact spot and you
That
hold
was
this
bad.
dagger. Oh,
That
man.
was
Because
bad.
we know that the Death Star is going to land in the ocean at that
exactly
angle.
at
Oh my
this spot. Oh, what?
That
all right.
that was
Well-
I don't hate the Rise of Skywalker as much as a lot of people do, but that was weak.
It's the only movie that I legitimately don't even have fun with. Like I'm just, and maybe it will with time, but even like the Attack of the Clones, I have fun. You know what I mean? It's not great, but I have a good time. I'll watch with some friends. We'll laugh at the silly things. We'll enjoy the fun things. Rise of Skywalker just is frustrating to me. But this is actually a great transition, because our final little part here to end out our time together, this long, very casual, fun discussion.
I just
want to
give a shout out to my mom and my dad for listening to this point.
Also, Mom,
And
hi.
I know that Mom was doing a crossword during the last hour and 50 minutes of this.
we're gonna end here just talking a little bit about the future of Star Wars. So it's no secret that after Disney bought the rights to Star Wars, the last 10 years, as far as on the big screen, have not really gone according to plan. They originally, way back in the early 2010s, said we're going to release one Star Wars movie every year. That was originally what they said. And they said, no, actually, we're going to do, we changed our minds. We're going to finish the Skywalker saga. And every other year, we're going to do anthology films called A Star Wars Story. Well, they eventually scrapped that too. And then after all, they said, we're going to give a trilogy to the guys who did Game of Thrones. And then they lost that trilogy. And then we're going to give a trilogy to Rian Johnson. And he hasn't lost that trilogy, but we've heard nothing about it for like 4 years. And then they announced that they were going to start making a new trilogy, unrelated to anything else, starting in 2022. But then they got rid of that. And there is currently only one movie on the schedule, on Disney's current schedule, and that's Rogue Squadron, supposedly coming out in December of 2023. On top of that, there are quite a few series on board. Coming out this month is Kenobi. As well, later this year, we have Andor, the series everybody's been dying for. Cassian Andor series.
I'm excited for it, actually.
Coming out sometime this year.
And he's been in that fight since he was 6 years old.
6 years old.
Probably a lot of good stories there.
There's also The Mandalorian Season 3. There's an Ahsoka show, and a show called The Acolyte that you can maybe tell us a little bit more about. Lando Calrissian, Donald Glover, coming back to play Lando, and then potentially Rangers of the New Republic, but I know that What's-Her-Face got fired. from The Mandalorian.
Cara Dune's actor,
yeah.
Gina Carano.
She
yeah,
got
she
fired, but I know she was supposed to lead that. Again, I am not keeping up with a lot of this stuff because I really honestly have a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, not just from The Rise of Skywalker, but by what I kind of see as some like not great planning, by all the changes. So I always hold all this stuff loosely, and I actually didn't even know that Book of Boba Fett came out till like the third week it had been out.
Probably for the best.
I heard it wasn't great, and on top of that, it was like I just have kind of been like, oh, I didn't know they were actually going to make that. So, and I haven't seen it yet. So with all of that, just holding all that in our minds, my question that I'd like to hear y'all answer is, how do we feel about Star Wars, and where does this franchise go from here? I mean, we've spent, I assume that we're probably close to 2 hours into this conversation at this point, talking about all the things we love about these movies, this universe, these characters, these stories, and how much it has been an important part of our childhoods leading into our adult lives. And yet, from my sense, there's a lot of I think apprehension towards the future of Star Wars on the screen. Maybe not in books like what you're up to, Andrew, but there really is. Even with Mandalorian being well received, people are like, look, they've got okay, Luke Skywalker again. We keep going back to the same stuff over and over again. What are y'all's thoughts? Should we be concerned about the future of Star Wars?
I think I'll keep my answer to on screen because I think there's a lot that I'm excited for as far as books go.
Sure.
Especially with the continuation of the High Republic, which I'm only one book in, but I'm enjoying that, and I think they're doing a lot of awesome things with the books. And a new Padme book just came out, telling her story to complete that trilogy. So books, as far as books go, I'm very encouraged and have been enjoying it, and I think there's a lot of good, interesting stories to come. I think I'm nervous about the direction of Star Wars on screen. I can't say much about the movies because, like you said, there's been a lot of projects that have been, mentioned but have ultimately been scrapped, or, we haven't heard anything yet. I do hope that Rian Johnson gets a trilogy because I loved The Last Jedi and would love to see what he can do with 3 movies together. I haven't been too impressed with where they seem to be taking the shows. I personally didn't like the Book of Boba Fett a lot. I think Phil had kind of mentioned this earlier that it feels a little bit too connected, which to some extent, like I think Luke showing up in The Mandalorian, like it makes sense, I think, for the time that the story is in.
But I understand he also shows up in Boba Fett's show too,
which I have strong feelings about that. I don't think that should have happened. I don't like throwing around fan service because I think that's not always the case there. But I'm just a little bit apprehensive where, with something like the Book of Boba Fett, I heard a lot of people who enjoyed it. It was because there was scenes and moments that were cool. But I was talking with some friends about it. But what does that mean for the story that they're telling, which doesn't seem to be holding up to to what's to the visuals on screen? But even then, it doesn't seem like it's the quality that I would have expected from a Star Wars production. I'm nervous, and my guy Thrawn is set to appear in the Ahsoka show, and I have very apprehensive feelings about what they're going to do with his character. I think that there are a lot of stories and through lines that can connect in interesting ways. I think the potential is there for some good products to come out. I'm excited for Andor personally because I think I like what Disney has done painting the galaxy in much more kind of like grayer strokes than just kind of black and white. Cassian saying in Rogue One, that he's done terrible things. He's been in the fight for a while, and seeing what that looks like, I'm excited for that. But I haven't really been impressed with some of the decisions that they've made recently, particularly with the Book of Boba Fett and what that means for what's coming next. Though I think with a show, a mini series, I think what Kenobi will be, just a few episodes, I don't think there's a lot that they could do wrong with that, but at the same time, I'm kind of left, you said that you're kind of left with a sour taste in your mouth, and that's kind of what the Book of Boba Fett has left me with. So I think I'm nervous to see what they will do. There's stories that I want to see play out, and I'm interested to see play out, but I think right now it seems that they're sacrificing good storytelling a lot of the times for just kind of crowd-pleasing moments, which is, it's kind of leaves me a little bit uneasy as a Star Wars fan,
Do you think some of that is I think a lot about the 6 months, December 2017 through the end of May 2018, which is The Last Jedi comes. So before that, you'd had Force Awakens come out. People, the worst thing people said about it was that it was derivative. It wasn't original, but there were few. I mean, sure, people didn't like it, but like the majority of people were like, "Oh, it was fun. It was great. I had a good time." It did what it needed to do, which is it got people excited for Star Wars and for the story to be told. Rogue One comes out, you go, "Oh, this is a different kind of story. This is interesting. These are some things." I think a lot of people liked it. And then you get The Last Jedi, and as much as some of us might like The Last Jedi, you can't argue that it was a very divisive film.
Absolutely, yeah.
Makes a ton of money still. Makes a lot of money. But definitely divides a lot of people. Some people really like it. Some people don't like it. Some people just go, "It's okay." And then less than 6 months later, I actually think Last Jedi gets too much flack, and we really should be looking more at Solo, which had already had directors being changed, and Ron Howard comes in at the last second. It comes out less than 6 months later.
Yeah,
and
it was the cadence of the release that...
It makes $80 million, which is a lot of money, but is a huge flop for Star Wars. And I think that's what worries Disney. I actually don't think it was the response to The Last Jedi, because, again, Disney's concerned about making money, and that movie made a lot of money. What they got worried about was, and I think they read the Solo box office as being people are mad about The Last Jedi, which I don't think is true. I think, one, people didn't really ask for a Han Solo prequel without Harrison Ford, the reason we all love Han Solo. Alden Ehrenreich's fine. That movie is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just whatever. And then again, it'd only been 6 months since the last Star Wars, and Star Wars is not Marvel. It's not the kind of thing where people are going to show up every 3 or 4 months to see a new, release. And so I think what then happened is they went back to Mandalorian, make it at the same time as well as Rise of Skywalker, and said, what can we do to make these things the most acceptable they could possibly be? I read a great review of Rise of Skywalker. It's like J.J. Abrams didn't try to make a good movie. He just tried to make a movie that wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings, that would make everybody happy at certain points. And that was the problem. And I think Disney, from Mandalorian Season 2, and then I haven't seen Book of Boba Fett, but from what I've heard, it kind of just seems like they're mostly concerned about, like, hey, please come back. Please, even with, like, I'm excited for Kenobi. I will watch this one. But I'm like, why is this not a movie? Like, why? And I think I know the answer, which is that right now, streaming services is where you make money. And Disney is trying to get every person in the entire world to sign up for ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus all together. And probably all of us in this room already do it. Many of our listeners do it too.
It's a good deal.
I do. It's a good deal. I do too. We pay for it. But
I just pray they don't alter it further.
But it's like, oh man, what would be really cool is if we were all going to the movies together in a month to watch Ewan McGregor. Would y'all not be more excited about a movie?
I would.
I would be. But instead, we're all going to get, and maybe people have parties and stuff, but like, we're going to all just get in front of our TVs on a Friday night, and we're going to watch an hour of Kenobi for like 6 weeks straight. And I don't think it's going to be as of lasting of impact. And I think Disney's not, and I'm not like anti-Disney. I mean, I don't love everything they do either, but like, Disney is in no way trying to squander this property, but they're wanting to make money. The Star Wars universe is no longer controlled by one guy, and as much as we rag on Lucas, he very much was in control, and the prequels were his vision, whether you liked it or not. It was one man's vision, and now it's a company's vision. It's an entire group of people, And I do think that they're more concerned about where's the profit coming in at, which is why I think, why not Deborah Chow, who's directing Kenobi? I'm like, why is this not a movie? I love a 2.5 hour Kenobi movie instead of 6 episodes that it's not going to be easy to go back and rewatch over time. It's not going to be something I don't think people will be talking. I mean, how often are we still talking about great miniseries? Like, was Chernobyl awesome a couple of years ago? Sure, but are we still talking about it the same way we would talk about a movie that was released like that? Probably not. So, I'm concerned because I think that I'm hopeful. Like Leia when she gets those plans from Cassian Andor and his friends, but I am concerned that Disney is trying almost to like buy back, I think, some of the frustration with fans and with viewers and be like, hey, look, that thing you like, we'll give you more of that. And it's like, I'm glad that you're excited for Cassian Andor's show. I'm kind of like, oh, like those themes could be explored with brand new characters. I already saw his story and I liked it, and I'm happy to bring K2SO back. That's going to be fun. But I'm like, oh, just tell me other story, like another story that takes place during the time I've seen 4 other times in a movie. I don't know that I'm that excited for that. Luke Skywalker's probably going to show up in it somehow. It's so I think those.
He was already in the trailer of the Kenobi show.
Tell me, yeah, it's a little bit different because he's a kid.
Yeah.
But show me something different. I want it. There's 30 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. Tell me what's going on there. Give me a little bit more, or with new characters, and not the same thing over and over again. So,
we've talked about this before, but I think there is an art to you watch a lot of the stuff, but you don't have to watch all of it, and you also don't have to, in your mind, let it count. So they've made a lot of content since Disney bought the entire franchise, and some of it has been really good. Rogue One, for a lot of people, jumped to the top of the list.
Same.
All-time favorite movie. And it's really good. And it does connect directly to A New Hope. Like, there's literally a handoff. They're passing it off to A New Hope. But there's some real duds, and there's some stuff that wasn't as great to watch. And there are series like the last few episodes of the Clone Wars where some of them are really good. Those last two.
And there's those 4 episodes where Ahsoka's with those 2 random people on Coruscant.
The 2 random ones.
And they're not good,
I've warmed up a little bit, but nothing can compare to the last arc.
That's kind of par for the course for the Clone Wars, which is like you always get 4 good episodes and then 4 episodes. Like, how is this made by the same people?
Yeah.
And then 4 good ones again.
And it might not. We don't necessarily know, but I think that one of the advantages of a series instead of a movie is that you can take your time and develop some stuff. I used to really like that. Now I'm more into, let's really craft 2.5 hours and make it really, really good. Mm-hmm. And sure, some stuff gets cut, but what's going to be left is the real meat. Like, you're going to trim some of the fat off. And then with these series, there's some downtime. There's some stuff that maybe they could have cut that. And there's also, I think that it's really great that Disney is pouring so much money into Star Wars stuff, because I do think we're going to have a ton of series come out, and some of them are going to be pretty amazing. And if they will continue to make stuff, eventually they'll make something that's not connected, and that'll hopefully be really good. If they do a Rian Johnson trilogy, I think that'll be amazing. We had a chance with Last Jedi. They did the fan service in Force Awakens, and I think they had to. I don't see a scenario where you don't do the fan service. Yeah. And then with Last Jedi, I thought they were getting away from it. When they cut down Snoke, I sat back in my seat. I was blown away. I thought,
we're in uncharted waters. We're in new territory.
I, for the first time, have no idea what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Same, absolutely same.
And I'm so excited about it. Yeah. And that movie is not perfect, but it's pretty close to being a perfect second movie in a trilogy, and it set up a lot of stuff. But we never would have gotten that if they had given J.J. Abrams all 3, and the series may be stronger if one director had done all 3. Yeah. That's also a lot to ask of a person.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen some really great directors who did some really cool stuff early on try to do an entire series, and Zack Snyder comes to mind. I think it's really hard to do I
don't like him at all.
I think he did some really good, interesting stuff early on. I don't consider him among the great directors, to be clear. But I think there's some fun stuff.
Fair enough.
That he does. I'm I'm just hoping that we'll get some more and more, like I don't think everything's going to be perfect because some things are going to be amazing and some things are they're going to be okay.
But you're feeling more hopeful that there's some good stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, I feel like rebellions are built on hope.
Are they not? Yeah. I think there are a lot of projects to be hopeful for, but I think that it feels like storytelling is being sacrificed in order to get people to watch. There were some moments in the Book of Boba Fett where, people show up or things are said where like anyone who started watching Star Wars from that moment, from that show, would not understand unless they went back and watched this show and this show and this show. And it feels like they're becoming a lot more prerequisites for Star Wars fans, and it doesn't feel like that is the way it should be. I feel like people should check out, some of the other material out there, but it shouldn't be impossible for them to fully like understand and appreciate what's happening for the sake of Disney trying to get more views or subscribers here and there. So,
and that's what's so great about the three trilogies. It's like you can't. Now I have my thoughts about like release order, but you can start with A New Hope or Phantom Menace, or you can even start with Force Awakens, and the movie works still. Now, are you missing certain parts of certain things? Yeah, but like all of those still work that way. I mean, a lot of my middle school students will say, "Oh, the first Star Wars movie I saw was Force Awakens," and to them that was just like you couldn't go into some of those. Even like the problem with Solo is like a movie that's supposed to be a prequel actually doesn't really like half the stuff doesn't really work if you actually don't know who Han Solo is, which is
it's a tough balance.
Fine to do that, but if you're leaning into that for most of your things where you've got to have this kind of cultural knowledge, I don't think that's a great way to build stories, Yeah.
Right.
And to bookend all of this, we see that Lewis does this really well in The Magician's Nephew because
Full circle.
You can start with, now I think you should start with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but you can start with The Magician's Nephew, and there's still good stories to be told, and you can understand. And we're doing that right now as well. You and I are, Phil. Our listeners haven't joined yet, but as we read through the beginning of The Magician's Nephew, so I think it's a great way for us to kind of cap off our time together here.
You brought it all together.
Yeah. Right. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for hanging out. This is so fun.
Yeah, thank you both for having me on. This is, I love talking about Star Wars, but also talking about Star Wars with two great people. I love it. I love it. So thank you so much.
Well, we fought really hard to get this on the calendar and to pick a time that would
make
work
it happen.
Because we can't do this episode with anybody else. It just doesn't make any sense.
We asked George Lucas, and he told us we couldn't play the music. So, but yeah, no, we're happy you were able to come, Andrew, and do this with us. So, Phil, do we have anything else to say to listeners before we go? Do we have an ending here? Or are we just going to awkwardly kind of end the episode?
Well, this is where a musical score would come in really handy.
We don't have any of it though.
Yeah. So
you can hum it.
It's a lot of money we got to pay to Disney. Well, maybe if they get a couple more subscribers from Kenobi, they'll let us use some of their music.
That's right. For the same price as Disney Plus, you can have Disney Plus and this podcast.
Well, we will tell listeners that we will be back in the month of June with Chapter 1 of The Magician's Nephew, called The Wrong Door, where Phil and I travel back to the turn of the century in London with Polly, Plummer, and Diggory Kirk. Isn't that Diggory's last name? Yeah, I think it is. All right. We'll see y'all in June.